Chapter 62. When you like a person, you will pay attention to every word he says. Every action, every expression, every sentence will cause the person you love to ponder over it for a long time. Because of love, you are afraid of losing. Qing Mei was unable to find an answer from Qingyan, so she could only leave. Her heart was in a mess. The relationship was already difficult to maintain. The two of them were fated to have a bad ending due to their status. But even if it was a sad ending, it should have been caused by someone else, and not him saying it personally. Qing Mei did not dare to confirm, and did not dare to think about it. She looked at Qingyan from afar, hoping that Qingyan would look at her with a comforting gaze, but Qingyan did not. Qingyan was still smiling warmly, as though nothing had happened. He and Hong Yen kept talking. Hong Yen was an extroverted lady, and she always had endless things to say. He would rather talk to other ladies than look at me. Am I thinking too much? Qing Mei quietly looked at Qingyan from afar. If not for the fact that she knew that Qingyan was not a fickle person, she would have suspected that Hong Yen and Qingyan had some secret relationship. Those few sects are too arrogant, and are not willing to form a team with us. Hong Yen helplessly walked back. Even though Gu Etian had caused their sect to be ranked third, it did not change their sect's position. After all, Qiantian School's overall strength was not worthy of its name, and many sects were unhappy that they lost to them, not to mention Qiantian School and Falling Dust sect, the two bottom-ranked sects, walking together. Everyone wanted to form a team with Qing Song School. At least if they met with danger, they would have a guarantee. Just at this time, a shifty-eyed fatty suddenly pulled a girl and ran over. The fat on the little fatty's body swayed back and forth, his pair of small eyes staring at Hong Yen lustfully, while the girl whose hand he was holding onto had a face of unwillingness, staring at him with her big watery eyes, as though she wanted to eat the little fatty up. Hong Yen, what a coincidence, your team is lacking people. Just nice, we are lacking people too. The little fatty acted as though he was familiar with Hong Yen, and was not shy at all. He walked over and smiled at Hong Yen with a fawning expression, almost drooling, as though he had the urge to beat him up. Hao Yingjun, go to the side, we don't lack you. Hong Yen obviously knew the fatty. Her face turned serious, and waved her hand impatiently. Don't praise me, just call me handsome. The fatty scratched the back of his head. Who praised you? Do you want face? Hong Yen scolded with her hands on her waist. Fatty innocently replied, didn't you say that I'm handsome? Mu Yu burst out laughing. This fatty was named Hao Yingjun, but he had small eyes and big ears, which completely didn't match his name. Perhaps his father was eager for his son to succeed in life, hoping that he would grow up to be a handsome and charming young master. Unfortunately, he accidentally fed him off the track of his name. Look, even little brother Mu Yu from the Falling Dust sect is laughing at you for having a bad memory, Hong Yen. Hao Yingjun said flatteringly. Good, his skin is really thick. Hey, this handsome big brother, which sect are you from? Mu Yu held back his laughter and asked. Hao Yingjun patted his head. I forgot to introduce myself. I am from the Wu Wen sect, and my master is Wu Yen Daoist. My name is Hao Yingjun. You can call me by my name, or even my surname. For example, Hong Yen likes to call me by my surname. Damn fatty, can you not pester me all day? Hong Yen spat at Hao Yingjun, and said without any trace of politeness. Your master is Wu Yen Daoist, right? Then you better not be with us. Your master called our Falling Dust sect a crooked sect. If he knew that you were with us, would he be so angry that he would change your surname to Bu? Mu Yu remembered the straightforward Wu Yen Daoist. At that time his words were not polite at all, and wantonly belittled their Falling Dust sect. He won't, Wu Yen Daoist is my father. He will not change my surname. Little brother Mu Yu, don't take it to heart. My father is more straightforward. He doesn't have any bad intentions. You see, we can't find anyone else. Why don't we? Brother, it was you who rejected the other sections. A junior sister beside Hao Yingjun whispered. Child's words carry no harm, child's words carry no harm. This is my little sister, Hao Shuer, she is 20 years old this year. Hao Ingjun hurriedly covered Shuer's mouth. Shuer pushed Hao Ingjun away and kicked him. Why did you tell me my age? Be gentle, she's already 20 years old. She's still a virgin. A grown girl can't be kept at home. Hao Ingjun said while covering his foot. Shuer's face turned red with anger. What does it have to do with you? Shuer was completely different from her brother. She was skinny and had a very slender figure. It felt like her mother fed her brother food when she was born. The two of them looked completely different. Hao Shuer was very pretty, but her brother looked like a pig. It was quite a strange thing. All right, then the 6 of us will form a team. Mu Yu did not object. This fatty's cultivation was also at the 9th level of foundation establishment. His sister Shuer's cultivation was slightly lower, only at the 3rd level of foundation establishment. Seems like this fatty eating too much might not be a bad thing, at least his talent was not bad. Hong Yen, look, little brother Mu Yu doesn't object to us being together. Oh no, we are a team. This shows that it is fate. Hao Ingjun laughed and said, Humph, can you not always stare at me? Hong Yen was very annoyed with this fatty. She had met him a few times in the academy, and every time, he would pester her and act like a hooligan. I won't stare, I won't stare. Hao Ingjun turned his gaze to Gu Yitian, but when Gu Yitian's cold eyes looked at Hao Ingjun shivered, and immediately turned to Mu Yu, secretly glancing at Hong Yen from time to time. Senior brother Gu Yitian, we meet again, thank you for showing mercy that day. Shuer shyly looked at Gu Yitian. During the competition between the Wuwen sect and Qiantian school, Gu Yitian did not receive much attention, so they only sent out Shuer, who was at the 3rd level of foundation establishment. Who would have thought that she would stumble and be defeated? I don't hit women, Gu Yitian said indifferently. I still have to thank you. Shuer's face was slightly red. In the eyes of the fatty, he seemed to be somewhat displeased. Shuer, this senior brother from the Falling Dust sect, is a man of striking appearance. You should get to know him better, not this piece of wood. I still don't know this senior brother's name? This one is Qingyan. Qingyan cupped his hands and said. In reality, he was younger than the fatty, but he had a mature and steady appearance, making people feel safe. Hao Ingjun could sense Qingyan's hidden cultivation level. Although he couldn't tell, he wasn't a fool. If his sister had to choose between Qingyan and Gu Yitian, she would choose Qingyan without hesitation. Greetings, senior brother Qingyan. Shuer nodded and then looked at Gu Yitian. She looked completely like a fangirl, which made Hao Ingjun almost die of anger. The teams had been divided, and the remaining ones were all assigned to Bai Liang. Bai Lang estimated the overall strength of each team again, and got the weaker teams to switch. Then, he said, I'm not sure if you'll be able to win or not. This is a signal flare made by my Qingsong school. If you encounter any danger or see Yuman, you must throw the signal flare into the air so that others can see it. I will give one to each of you, so be careful and don't get separated from your teammates. Bai Liang waved his hand, and the signal flare made of red paper flew to each of them, and stopped in front of each of them. His control of spiritual power had reached the realm of perfection, and this alone was enough to make many people feel inferior. Mu Yu held the signal flare in his hand. It was indeed safer with this thing, and if they encountered any danger, at least others would know. Everyone put it away, and then continued to look at Bai Liang. Don't let your guard down when it comes to Yuman. If you really find Yuman's lair, you must evacuate to a safe place first, and then inform the others. It will be safer if everyone works together to deal with Yuman. Let me emphasize again that this is a serious matter, and I hope that everyone can put aside their differences and work together. Don't ruin the whole operation because of personal grudges. I allowed everyone to form their own teams to avoid this situation. If anyone is still unsatisfied with the arrangement, you can say it now. Otherwise, we will start the operation. The freedom to form teams ensured harmony in the same team to the greatest extent, and there would be no conflicts between sects, so no one had any objections. As the team leader, Bai Liang was very thoughtful and had the demeanor of a leader. It was no wonder that he was highly regarded by the Qingsong Taoists. According to the hunter's information, Yuman should be deep in the forest behind Mount Fulong. Everyone will enter from different directions, and we will spread out a net to surround and search. I will now assign each team to search in the same direction. Everyone, pay attention to your safety. The search will take 10 days. Before everyone set off, the Qingsong school has prepared 15 days' worth of rations for you. It should be enough. If we find nothing in 10 days, then I will send a signal for everyone to evacuate, and then we will make a decision. Bai Liang had already investigated the terrain of Mount Fulong, and he had done his homework before they set off. Every team member flew into the mountains from a certain direction according to his instructions, and then disappeared into the dense forest. Mount Fulong was vast, and 7 teams were not enough. However, if they were divided into more teams, there would be fewer people, and it would be unsafe. Your team will enter from the southeast. Junior brother Hao Yingjun, your sect knows a lot about Yuman, so I won't say too much. Be careful. Bai Liang's words were directed at Hao Yingjun. His gaze drifted over Mu Yu and Gui Tian. These two were the dark horses of this competition. With their abilities, it was reassuring to have them in the same team. He also looked at Qingyan a few more times. Qingyan had always kept a low profile, so Bai Liang did not remember that the Falling Dust sect had someone at the 9th level of Foundation establishment. Senior brother Bai Liang, don't worry. I know how to search for Yuman according to the terrain. It was rare for the fatty to be so serious. Unfortunately, he looked very funny when he was serious. Mu Yu held back his laughter. Qing Mei looked at Qingyan, but Qingyan did not look at her. What's wrong? Bai Liang asked Qing Mei. Chapter 63. According to the sect's secret scrolls, the hiding place of the Yuman is actually very easy to find. The place that is out of place with the surrounding forest is the territory of the wood Yuman. Water Yuman hides wherever there is a river. However, water Yuman are harder to find because they mostly live in underground rivers. Hao Yingjun talked nonstop about all kinds of information about the Yuman. After all, he came from a big sect, and there was a lot of information about the Yuman in the sect. Don't be fooled by his chubby, frivolous appearance, even a little lecherous, but those who could be sent here by the sect were not simple goods. For this trip to the Hidden Dragon Mountains, he had specially read through all the information regarding the Yumeng demon clan. Fire Yuman are the easiest to find. They will be there wherever the temperature is abnormal. They can control the flames and won't stay put in the forest. Earth Yuman can only rely on luck. They are everywhere and can run very fast. As for the gold Yuman, we have to rely on this. Hao Yingjun took out a small and delicate compass with a pointer spinning on it. He said, when it shows an abnormality, it means that the gold Yuman's nest is nearby. The compass pointed to the south. Because the gold Yuman could control metal, their appearance could easily affect the compass direction. When Hao Yingjun took out the compass, it still didn't stop spinning for a long time. He was a little confused and muttered, "Strange, why hasn't it stopped? Could there be a gold Yuman nearby?" Qingyan frowned and took the compass. Soon, the compass stopped spinning. He smiled and said, "Maybe it hasn't been used for too long." Hao Yingjun saw that the compass was indeed pointing to the south. He thought that it might be because it hadn't been used for too long, so he didn't think too much about it. Remember to wrap everything on your body with spiritual power, Qingyan said. He knew everything that Hao Yingjun knew. Yuman likes to gather in places with abundant spirit energy just like us cultivators. They can also absorb spirit energy, but since they can't control it, they can't control the things that are covered by our spirit energy, so you don't have to worry about your iron sword or wooden products being controlled by Yuman. That's right, senior brother Qingyan is also a knowledgeable person. Fatty looked at Qingyan in surprise before he continued. This is also why we cultivators can deal with Yuman, while normal people can't. In fact, our human bodies are made up of the 5 elements. Ordinary people are nothing more than tools to be controlled by Yuman. Only cultivators with spiritual energy are not controlled. Mu Yu nodded slightly. No wonder cultivators looked down on ordinary people, while ordinary people still looked up to cultivators. In front of Yuman, only cultivators could protect ordinary people and fight against Yuman. Then what is the most difficult Yuman to deal with? Mu Yu asked. He had never seen a Yuman before, and his master had never told them about Yuman. Perhaps before Mu Yu had come to the Falling Dust sect, Feng Haochen had told him that Mu Yu's understanding of Yuman was limited to the stories that the village chief often told children. However, many of the village chief's stories were used to scare children, so a lot of the information wasn't very accurate. That's hard to say. It's said that among normal Yuman, the fire Yuman is the biggest threat to us. Of all the Yuman, only the fire Yuman can fly. They won't be at a disadvantage when fighting cultivators like us. After all, we can fly too, so we have an advantage against other Yuman that can't fly. Hao Injun paused for a moment, then continued. The Earth Yuman is naturally the one we need to pay the most attention to. The entire land is their battlefield. The gold Yuman are relatively rare, so their explosive power is the most terrifying. Even I don't understand why. If it rains, then we cultivators don't even have the desire to fight. The water Yuman on a rainy day is the real nightmare. As for the wood Yuman, Hao Injun suddenly stopped and said mysteriously, you must think that the wood Yuman is the weakest, right? You're right, they don't have much fighting power. Normal wood Yuman pose the least threat to cultivators, but they control trees. Trees symbolize life force, so killing them requires a lot of energy. Wood Yuman were the hardest to kill. In the past, when humans fought Yuman, they were the most troublesome. On the other hand, Mu Yu Meng was a kind of healer on the battlefield. The other heavily injured Yu Meng could easily recover with their help. The wood Yuman's powerful recovery ability was undeniable. Not only that, according to the book, the Yuman are also divided into different grades. The higher grade wood Yuman, even the other wood Yuman do not dare to provoke them. A high-level Mu Yumeng demon can instantly control a person's life and death. He will use a strange method to directly suck away the life force in your body. If you are unable to withstand his mental attack, then you will instantly lose your life. Hao Ingjuan's final expression was somewhat strange, because he was unable to imagine what kind of situation it was. According to the book, it was like an instant kill, leaving the human with no way to retaliate. Ah, it's really that powerful? Hong Yen opened her eyes wide. In terms of knowledge, how could she compare to this damn fatty? Little sister Hong Yen, don't be afraid, I'm here. Any Yuman is nothing. Hao Injun immediately assumed the demeanor of an elder brother, using his hand to slowly brush his hair. His eyes filled with love as he looked at Hong Yen. Scram! Hong Yen said in disgust. Hao Injun laughed, then said, I feel that it's all nonsense. How can it be so powerful, then we don't even need to fight. Once the Wood Yuman Emperor appears, wouldn't everyone die? For tens of thousands of years, the war between humans and Yuman has never stopped. If the Wood Yuman is so powerful and can instantly absorb life force, then humans would have long gone extinct. These people had never seen a Yuman before, as the Yuman had disappeared for tens of years. So all these were passed down from the older generation, and whether or not they were exaggerating remained to be seen. But Mu Yu's heart was still shaken. Other people might think that it was an exaggeration, but he did not. In his eyes, all the living beings that he saw were all brimming with life force. Every time a demonic beast died, He could clearly feel its life force flowing away. It was not a metaphor, but a real feeling. It was as though something was being sucked out of the living being's body. It was formless, but it had substance, and to him, it was clear. He was extremely sensitive to life force, and not only that, he could even use the trees to heal himself. If a wound appeared on his body, it would quickly heal under the nourishment of the trees. However, he carefully hid these abilities, not daring to reveal them. In any case, everyone just needs to be careful. This is a deep forest, and there are so many trees. The wood yuman is the strongest, but it's said that they don't like to fight, because other than waving their branches, they can't do anything else. There's no way they can defeat us, Hao Ingjun said with a smile. He still looked down on the wood yuman, and he did not believe that the yuman had the ability to kill humans in an instant. After flying for a short distance, they landed in the forest. Looking for the yuman in the sky was unreliable. The forest was silent, and only the crisp sound of leaves being crushed could be heard. Even the chirping of birds could not be heard. These trees were extremely tall, and each of them was over 20 meters tall. They covered the sky, and it was almost impossible to see the sky. Why is it so strange? I can't see a single insect or bird. Where did they all go? Shui looked around nervously. In the forest, other than trees and rocks, there were no insects at all. It was too strange. Hao Ingjun led the way in front, and the rest were also on guard. The forest was so quiet that they could only hear their own breathing, causing them to panic. Muyu walked at the back. He used his hands to gently touch the trees along the way, and carefully focused on the trees. The roots and branches of the trees intertwined with each other, allowing him to obtain a large range of information from a single tree. With his current ability, he could observe everything within a 20-meter radius. He could merge with the trees and use the trees as his eyes. It was a pity that he could not communicate with the trees, and the trees were unable to tell him where the creatures in the forest went. In a forest, if there were no creatures, then the food chain would be broken, and the trees would slowly die. But the strange thing was that the trees here were growing normally, and he did not know where the problem was. Ba-ji! A light sound came from the front. Hao Ingjun exclaimed and immediately jumped up. What's wrong? What's wrong? Is the yuman out? Hong Yen shouted. She had the lowest cultivation among them, and was the most nervous. Where is it? Where is it? Shui pulled out her flying sword and asked in a panic. The two girls had never been to such a place before, not to mention coming to such a strange forest to search for the mysterious yuman's whereabouts. It would be a lie to say that they were not nervous. No, I stepped on dog poop. Hao Ingjun kept rubbing his feet on the side of the stone, trying to get rid of the disgusting thing. Are you retarded? If you stepped on dog poop, then step on dog poop. Why are you making a fuss about it? Hong Yen scolded angrily. Hao Ingjun muttered, It's clearly the two of you who are shouting. There are no living things here, how can there be dog poop? Qingyan frowned, and walked over to look at the thing that Hao Ingjun stepped on, and there were still his fat footprints. This is not dog poop, this is the poop of a first-level demon wolf, Qingyan said. Brother, you are good, a poop expert, Hao Ingjun said in admiration. Fatty, are you looking for a beating? Mu Yu scolded. Sorry, I didn't mean it that way. Hao Ingjun quickly waved his hand and said innocently. Qingyan ignored him, and looked around. There are no living things here, so there shouldn't be this thing, what is going on? There are bird poop around here, and spider webs, it looks like it was made not long ago, but why don't I see any spiders? Mu Yu pushed aside a bush, and there was a spider web covered with dew, and on it was half a flying insect's corpse. Could it be that they knew that my big brother Ingjun was coming, so they couldn't wait to retreat? Hao Ingjun asked. It's possible that they were scared away by a shameless guy like you. Hong Yen interrupted. Junior sister Hong Yen is right. Hao Ingjun nodded, his body was big and his face was thick, so he was not angry. Gu Etienne carried his sword on his back, and was not interested in these things. He was only interested in fighting, so when everyone was discussing, he was too lazy to talk. Let's go ahead and take a look. I can vaguely see a small stream in front of us. Let's find a water source first. Remember to use your spirit power to cover the water when you drink. Mu Yu raised his head to look at the canopy that covered the sky, and his heart had a bad premonition. Chapter 64. Mu Yu and the rest walked slowly in the forest. After walking for about 2 hours, they finally walked out of the quiet forest. Hao Ingjun was complaining the entire way, because his body was huge, and the surrounding branches were crisscrossing. He was always scratched by the branches. But no one pitied him, including his sister. Hong Yen, look, my skin is all scratched. Hao Ingjun pitifully pointed at the scratches on his arm. You are a cultivator, how can you be scratched? So embarrassing. Hong Yen glared at Hao Ingjun, then walked towards the stream. Outside the forest was a small stream. The water was very clear. Glossy cobblestones of different sizes were at the bottom of the stream. There were even some aquatic plants floating on the water. Everyone used their spirit power to fill their water bottles. The stream flowed through the forest. No one knew where it went. On the other side of the stream was a dense forest. The surroundings were covered by the forest. If they did not fly, they would get lost if they walked too deep. Mu Yu sat on a big rock beside the stream, looking at the sky. It was almost dusk. They could not go any further. Qingyan descended from the sky. He had just checked the situation from above, but did not find anything strange. Other than not seeing the birds flying around, everything else was normal. Are we really going to stay in this forest for 10 days? Hong Yen threw a few small stones in her hand. She was feeling uneasy. Junior sister Hong Yen, don't worry. Senior brother will tell you a joke to relieve your boredom? Once upon a time, there was a fatty. Hao Ingjun always came over at the wrong time. No need, you are already a joke. Hong Yen waved her hand. Junior sister Hong Yen will laugh when she sees me? That's great. In these 10 days, junior sister Hong Yen can look at me every day. Hao Ingjun also picked up a few small stones, and copied Hong Yen and threw them up and down. Mu Yu looked at the two noisy fellows and laughed in his heart. At least with this damn fatty, this journey will not be too lonely. They had come here to search for the Yumeng demon clan, whose existence they did not know, but they had no clue at all. The only clue was what the Qingsong Taoist said. A hunter went hunting in the mountains and saw Yuman. Then, he was saved by a young man in red. The red-clothed youth. Mu Yu was shocked. He remembered that on his first day at Qingsong school, the Qingsong Taoist had told him about the young man in red who had saved people. Because no one knew who he was, no one looked into it. But that night, Mu Yu also saw a young man in red forcing the Qingsong Taoist to submit. Could these two people be the same person? If they were the same person, then why would this red-clothed young man appear in this deep mountain? If he was so kind as to save people, why would he force the Qingsong Taoist to become a slave? If they were not the same person, then wouldn't that be too much of a coincidence? How many men in the cultivation world would wear red and run around so conspicuously? But in any case, there was one thing that Mu Yu could not guess wrong. This red-clothed young man came for Jian Ing Chen Feng. He controlled the Qingsong Taoist to make it easier for him to find people. With his energy, even if his cultivation was very high, he could not completely search the entire Moyun Mountains. He did not know if he was still in Qingsong school at this moment. Had the Qingsong Taoist stepped into the nascent soul stage? Mu Yu could not help but worry about his master. His master was no longer Jian Ing Chen Feng. His cultivation was only in the Jindan period. If the red-clothed young man knew about it, it would be a disaster. There was probably no one in the Moyun Mountains who could be the opponent of this red-clothed young man. The only thing that made Mu Yu feel a little relieved was that his master should have already returned to Luochen Mountain. Let's stay here for the night. We'll continue tomorrow morning, Qingyan said. No one had any objections. Hao Yingjun was pestering Hong Yan. Shui was sitting not far away from Gu Yitian. Unfortunately, Gu Yitian did not even lift his eyelids. He had a cold and aloof appearance. The only one who did not speak was Gu Yitian. He did not like to talk and liked to fight more. Qingyan went to pick up a pile of dry branches. The sky quickly darkened and they started a fire. What do you say, if we start a fire here? What should we do if the fire Yaman comes? Hong Yan asked. Wouldn't it be better if he comes? We originally came to find Yaman. Hao Yingjun picked up the dry branches and threw them into the fire. Everyone sat around the fire. The surroundings were still very quiet. There was no other sound. There was only the sound of the fire burning the dry branches. In this damned place, we can't even hunt animals to fill our stomachs. Shui took a bite of dry food. No one liked to eat dry food. She originally planned to hunt a few wild beasts to roast, but in such a big forest, there was not a single living thing. It was really strange. Let's persevere for a while. Tonight we will take turns to be on duty. 2 people in a group. The rest of you can rest first, Qingyan suggested. Then I want to be in a group with junior sister Hong Yan, Hao Yingjun said impatiently. Pei, who wants to be in a group with you? Hong Yan scolded. All right then, it's fine if you don't want to be in a group with me. I can watch junior sister Hong Yan fall asleep. Hao Yingjun waved his hand. Hong Yan's face changed. She really wanted to beat the fatty up for having such an idea. Thinking about it, if she were to be on duty with the fatty, she would definitely be pestered to death. If she were to not be on duty with the fatty, being watched to sleep by the fatty was also a very strange thing. In the end, she could only scold the fatty and helplessly choose to be on duty with the fatty. Being pestered was better than being watched to sleep by him. Then I will be with senior brother Gu Yitian. Your falling dust sect will be in a group of 2. Shui immediately said. It is best for people from the same sect to not be together. We still need to be vigilant, Gu Yitian said indifferently. If people from the same sect were to be on duty together, if they had any evil intentions, it would not be a good thing for the other sections. Is that so? All right then, we will split up the sects according to your idea. But have you thought about it? The fatty and senior sister Hong Yan are in a group. If the fatty has any evil intentions, can senior sister Hong Yan be his opponent? You and Shui are in a group. If you want to make a move on Shui, can Shui be your opponent? Mu Yu replied coldly. Gu Yitian's words obviously showed that he did not trust them. Hey, little brother Mu Yu, what nonsense are you talking about? Why would I harm junior sister Hong Yan? The fatty said unhappily. Qingyan spoke out. All right, everyone is here for the same goal. Trust is the most important thing. There is no need to be suspicious of each other. 2 people in a group was originally to give everyone more time to rest. Since you have misgivings, then 3 people in a group. Me, Shui and you will be in a group. Mu Yu and the other 2 will be in a group. Gu Yitian snorted and did not say anything else. Mu Yu and the other 2 were on duty for the first half of the night. The other 3 quickly closed their eyes and went to rest. Hao Yingjun saw that the others were resting and stopped talking to Hong Yan. In truth, he was the one talking the majority of the time. Hong Yan did not pay much attention to him. Looking at the sky, a crescent moon was hanging there. The weather was clear and bright, and one could see the sky full of stars. The surroundings were too quiet. There was not even the sound of crickets chirping. Occasionally, one could hear the rustling of the leaves. The night was getting darker. Unknowingly, there were some light chirping sounds. At first, Mu Yu did not notice it, but very quickly, Mu Yu actually heard the faint chirping of birds. He did not hear it during the day, so why did it appear at night? Not only that, Mu Yu also smelled the qi. It was getting thicker and thicker, but he could not remember when he smelled it. During the day, he also smelled it, but when he asked the others, no one else smelled it. He thought that it was just his imagination. Did you notice that there seems to be more noises around us? Hong Yen asked softly. Mu Yu and Hao Ingjun nodded at the same time. They looked at each other and saw a trace of confusion in each other's eyes. Do you want to go into the forest to take a look? Hao Ingjun suggested. No, the forest is too dark. It's not safe. Mu Yu shook his head. But he slowly walked to a tree beside the stream. With his back against the tree, he sent his divine sense into the tree. A snake crawled from the 5th treetop behind Mu Yu. It stared motionlessly at a magpie on the treetop. The magpie stood on the branch and chirped happily. It did not know that danger was approaching. A squirrel came out of nowhere and jumped around in the bushes. 2 spiders quickly crawled between the leaves and began to weave a web. A rabbit jumped out and chewed on the grass on the ground. Suddenly, it ran away. A leopard stealthily moved in the bushes and chased after it. Then, there was a burst of poochie sound in the forest. Mu Yu opened his eyes. He found it hard to believe. What is going on with these animals? Why did they suddenly come out at night? Why did their habits suddenly change? The night is so dark. Are they not affected? It's strange. During the day, the beasts, insects, and birds in the forest that cannot be seen during the day seem to have appeared at night. Mu Yu left the tree and walked back to the bonfire. What? Why do they move out at night? Where did they go during the day? Hong Yen asked in surprise. Mu Yu shook his head. During the day, he used his divine sense to sense the trees but did not find any trace of these beasts. Instead, when night fell, they all ran out. What changed the habits of these animals? Is that a tiger's roar? Hao Ingjun raised his eyebrows. Everyone listened carefully. Sure enough, they heard a tiger's roar coming from the distant forest. It was extremely powerful. It seemed to be coming from the forest opposite the stream. Hong Yen shrunk her body. Her face was flushed red. She stood up and looked around. What's wrong? Mu Yu asked. I'm going to relieve myself. Hong Yen said. It's so dark. I'll go with you. Hao Ingjun stood up and patted his chest in a very manly manner. Scram! Hong Yen did not even turn her head as she walked behind a tree. If you dare to follow me, you're dead. Hao Ingjun scratched his head. Then hurry up. Do you want me to wake Shui Er up to accompany you? Don't worry about it. Let me ask you. How much do you know about the red-clothed youth who saved the hunter? Mu Yu asked. Hao Ingjun thought for a while before saying, I don't know either. Who would have nothing better to do than to come here and save that mortal. Actually, this matter is not convincing based on the mortal's side of the story. We disciples only came here to show our sincerity. The elders do not believe that there is a Yuman here. But after coming here, I saw that this place was a bit strange. Now I can't make a conclusion. The red-clothed youth said that he directly brought the hunter out of this mountain and then disappeared. Have you heard the hunter's description? Mu Yu asked curiously. My father told me that if one did not see a Yuman with their own eyes, it would be very difficult to describe the Yuman so clearly. His voice, appearance, and the way he cast spells. Also, the conversation between the wood Yuman and the fire Yuman. A mortal would not have the guts to lie to us. Hao Ingjuan's father was after all an elder of the Silent Sect, one of the 4 great sections. It was normal for him to know more. Yuman was defeated by us humans 70 to 80 years ago. Where did he go after that? Mu Yu realized that his understanding of the Yuman was pitifully small. The next time he goes back, he must ask his master. Why did he say that he had the wood Yuman's ability? But if he did not know anything about the Yuman, wouldn't that be ridiculous? It is said that they are almost extinct. No one knows where they went. According to the records in the ancient scrolls, the 5 eldest Yuman were sealed by a powerful human. Then, the younger Yuman were like a group of dragons without a leader. They panicked and were defeated. Most of them were killed. Some of them escaped to places that are difficult for humans to enter. For example, the vast ocean, the burning volcano, or the dark underground. How Ingjun grew up in the sect. His father was an elder of the sect. He usually read a lot of ancient scrolls in the sect. Don't be fooled by his sloppy appearance. In reality, he knew quite a lot of things. However, at this moment. Chapter 65. Mu Yu did not expect the fat guy to be so fast, even he could not react in time. He immediately rushed over, the others were also shocked awake, not knowing what had happened. What's wrong? When Mu Yu rushed over, he realized that Hao Ingjun was the only one standing there. Hong Yen is gone. Hao Ingjun's face was flustered, he walked around in a circle, but did not see Hong Yan's shadow. Mu Yu's heart sank, he waved his shadow-clone sword, the green sword light illuminating the surroundings. The surrounding insects dodged the green light and ran towards the shadows. What's wrong? The others rushed over, only to realize that there was only Mu Yu and Hao Ingjun, but Hong Yan was gone. Save me! Hong Yan's voice came out from the forest, but it seemed that her mouth was covered, and very quickly, there was no sound. So Gu Yition's body had already disappeared. He chased towards the direction of the voice. Hao Ingjun followed behind. Shuer, follow Mu Yu, I will be the last. Qingyan said, in the gloomy forest. He did not mess up, Shuer's cultivation was the lowest amongst the rest. If they chased after the person in front, Shuer would definitely be the last. If something happened to Shuer, it would not be good. Mu Yu's body shuttled back and forth between the branches, the tip of his foot nimbly dodging the crisscrossing branches. He frowned. The strange qi was getting thicker. What was that qi? Where did it come from? Why was he the only one who could smell it? Mu Yu stomped his foot and stopped. What's going on? Qingyan and Shuer stopped and asked. They are gone too. Mu Yu could no longer see Hao Ingjun and Gu Yition. He did not know where they went. The trees in the forest were too dense. If one was not careful, they would not be able to see the others. Mu Yu grabbed onto the trees tightly, and the trees within a 20 m radius immediately reported back to him. It's over. The two of them went in different directions. Mu Yu felt that something was amiss. The two of them were too eager to save people and moved too fast. They didn't even realize that they had separated in the dark. Qingyan's expression turned grave. They should be fine, right? Who is the one that kidnapped senior sister Hong Yan? Shuer's face was a little pale. In this godforsaken place where she couldn't even see her own fingers, she could only see the faint light emitted by their respective magic treasures. She couldn't see anything else at all. If it weren't for the fact that Qingyan and Mu Yu were beside her, she would have been scared out of her wits. This was also what Mu Yu wanted to know. Who would kidnap Hong Yan, especially when she was so close to them? Hong Yan was at least at the first layer of foundation establishment, yet she did not even have the slightest ability to resist. Could it be the two words, Yuman, appeared in their minds at the same time? They looked at each other, and finally Shuer broke the silence. Should we send out a signal to inform the others? We are still not sure if it's Yuman. It's already so late, let's not talk about whether or not anyone saw it. Even if they saw it, we can't take the risk of letting the others rush over. We also can't stay here and wait for the others to come over. We still have to find them. Qingyan shook his head. Senior brother, you bring senior sister Shuer in that direction to chase after Fatty. I will go here to find Gu Yition. Mu Yu pointed in two different directions. The two of them were too fast, and had long exceeded his range of perception. You and Shuer go together, I will go find someone. Qingyan did not agree with Mu Yu going alone. He was at the Jindan period, and moving alone was more reliable than Mu Yu. If he brought Shuer along, he would not be able to display his full potential. Don't worry, senior brother, I know what I am doing. Nothing will happen. Trust me, once we find someone and fly into the sky, the light of the talisman will guide everyone. Mu Yu nodded at Qingyan, and then he had already turned left, disappearing into the dense forest in the blink of an eye. Come back! Qingyan shouted, but Mu Yu had already left. He was a little angry. Mu Yu was too reckless. He had completely forgotten that Qingyan was at the Jindan period. With Qingyan's speed, it was more than enough to catch up with the others. Schwerer, hold on tight to me. Qingyan did not hide anymore. He directly carried Schwerer, and his Jindan period cultivation was released without reservation. His body only paused for a moment, and then he was already dozens of feet away. Senior brother Qingyan, you are at the Jindan period. Schwerer wanted to resist when Qingyan hugged her, but Qingyan's display of cultivation shocked her greatly. Qingyan was about the same age as her, and he was from the Falling Dust sect, but he actually had a Jindan period cultivation? How was this possible? Don't ask too many questions, I mean no harm. Qingyan was extremely fast. He had already spread out his divine sense, covering the surroundings as he headed in Hao Yingjuan's direction. 15 minutes later, he had already found Hao Yingjuan's aura. His body flashed again, and he was already by Hao Yingjuan's side. The two of you, stop running around. Qingyan's face was terrifyingly gloomy. He grabbed Hao Yingjuan's hand and pulled him back. Why are you chasing in the middle of the night? Don't you know that we have already separated? Are you the one looking for her, or is she the one looking for you? You! Hao Yingjun felt a terrifying aura coming from Qingyan's body. It caused his heart to palpitate, and he could not move at all. This was a terrifying aura that only existed during the Jindan period, and it actually appeared on Qingyan's body. Is there any news of Hongyan? Qingyan asked in a deep voice. Hao Yingjun shook his head. He had been chasing for a while, but he realized that he could no longer hear any news of Hongyan. He could not even see Gu Yitian's shadow. Protect your sister well. Fly into the air and wait there. Don't let the light of your treasure fade. Qingyan put Schwer down. His words were still echoing in the air when he disappeared again. Senior brother, he really? Schwer asked in disbelief. Hao Yingjun swallowed a mouthful of saliva and nodded. Qingyan's terrifying cultivation had been unreservedly released just now, pressuring him to the point that he almost couldn't breathe. He would only feel this kind of aura when he angered his father. Schwer, be careful. Hao Yingjun suddenly sensed something and hurriedly pulled Schwer away. Following that, a black shadow swept towards them and almost pushed Schwer to the ground. Hao Yingjuan's treasure lit up and illuminated the black shadow. When they saw the black shadow clearly, Schwer and Hao Yingjun were both startled. Schwer let out a scream. She was frightened by the black shadow in front of her. On the other side of the forest, Mu Yu had already disappeared. He had already blended into the trees and was quickly shuttling back and forth. He could only use his wood control ability when moving alone. He had a question that he needed to solve himself. Regarding the increasingly dense and familiar aura, he could not figure out where it came from, but he felt that the aura definitely meant something to him. After blending into the trees, his perception of his surroundings increased by a lot. His movement speed was also very fast. He even found traces of Gu Yitian, but he did not go to find Gu Yitian. This was because Gu Yitian's direction had already deviated, and Hongyan was in another direction. At the moment, Mu Yu no longer knew where he was. He only felt that the trees around him were getting denser and denser. It did not affect him, but he was getting further and further away from the others. Save me. A weak cry for help came out. It was Hongyan's voice. At the moment, she seemed to be injured. Her voice was intermittent and weak. But the aura that Mu Yu smelled was coming from another direction. This aura did not belong to Hongyan. Mu Yu could only give up on tracking the aura. After determining the direction of the voice, he turned and walked towards Hongyan. The trees broke apart at this point. In front of him was an empty space. If he walked further, he would reach a small hill made of rocks. Mu Yu had no choice but to leave the trees and carefully walk out. Beneath his feet were broken rocks, and within the rocks, there were a few ancient orchid grass. These grass were scattered, their roots were small and not connected together. Mu Yu was unable to rely on them to move quickly. Guji! Mu Yu stepped on something and released a crisp sound. His shadow clone sword flashed with a green light in front of him. Borrowing the light, he lowered his head to take a look. It was actually a bone. Mu Yu was shocked. He did not know if the bone was from a human or an animal. It had been weathered for a long time and was crushed by him. He looked around him. There were many bones scattered all over the ground. It looked like the bones of some demonic beast. There was also a strange skull with a sharp chin and a long nose. He did not know what kind of demonic beast it was. Save, save. Hong Yan's voice came from the top of the hill. She could not even speak clearly. To prevent himself from stepping on something and alerting the enemy, Mu Yu stepped on his flying sword and flew up the hill. The hill was made of rock. Behind a protruding boulder, a dark and damp cave appeared in front of Mu Yu. The heavy breathing sound came from the cave. The breathing sound was very low, and the interval between the breaths was very long. It was somewhat oppressive, and hearing it made one's hair stand. Hong Yan's voice had already disappeared. She was most likely inside, but Mu Yu was not sure. In such a gloomy place, Mu Yu's heart had a trace of fear. After all, he was only a 15-year-old youth. He did not have much experience, but he could not ignore his companion inside. Mu Yu calmed himself down and slowly approached the cave. Step by step, he moved. Suddenly, his foot slipped and he almost fell. Below his foot was a lump of wet, unknown substance. It was white and sticky. Mu Yu had stepped on it. It was very slippery. Mu Yu even smelled a fishy smell. He frowned and forced himself not to vomit. What exactly is this place? Mu Yu's heart was beating like a drum. When he raised his head, he could still see the crescent moon. He could also see a flock of birds flying out from the forest. When they flew past the crescent moon, they left behind a few unpleasant cries. He stepped into the 2-meter-tall cave. After entering the cave, he could no longer see the moonlight. There was only the light from his shadow clone sword. The visibility was too low. Drip! Mu Yu took a deep breath. He didn't know where the sound of water dripping came from, but it scared him quite a bit. The cave did not look like it was formed naturally. It looked like it was dug by an animal. There were many sharp claw marks. It was a ghastly sight, but it was already covered in moss. The fishy smell was getting thicker and thicker. He could see the disgusting mucus on the walls. Mu Yu's stomach churned. Fortunately, he did not eat much today. Otherwise, he would have vomited last night's meal. Jie jie jie, it sounded like something was laughing. It also sounded like something was whispering. Mu Yu's scalp went numb, but he still carefully walked forward. After walking a few more steps, the front suddenly became spacious. Mu Yu retracted his foot and fell down. He stepped on the flying sword in time. When he stabilized his body and saw the huge cave, he was stunned. The rotten smell assailed his nostrils. There was white mucus everywhere. There were many corpses of demonic beasts hanging in the air. They were wrapped in white threads. Some of them were missing half of their bodies, and some were still dripping blood. Mu Yu had seen some of these demonic beasts before. For example, the ferocious rank 2 demonic beast, the blue lion. This kind of powerful and vigorous demonic beast was in existence that ordinary Foundation establishment stage cultivators would not dare to provoke. At this moment it was hanging in the air. The huge lion's head looked like it was torn in half. White brain matter mixed with blood stuck to its fur. It was nauseating. Hong Yan was also wrapped in white threads and hung in the air. Her eyes were tightly shut. Her face was pale and bloodless. It was unknown if she was dead or alive. "Senior Sister Hong Yen?" Mu Yu lightly called out. He then flew towards Hong Yen. However, he suddenly felt a cold wind behind him. Mu Yu's body quickly sank. The shadow clone sword moved backwards. He had already pulled away. Chapter 66. What Mu Yu saw was not a human that was emitting flames or covered in treetops, but an ugly monster. This monster had human limbs and even human hands that were covered in a layer of fine hair. Its fingernails were long and black, but its head was not that of a human. Instead, it had a ghastly pale face with 8 eyes of different sizes. There were 2 gray teeth in its mouth, and a swaying scorpion tail trailed behind its back. Its 2 pincers were constantly opening and closing. Miserable Face Spider Scorpion. This name suddenly appeared in Mu Yu's mind. He immediately thought of it when he saw the monster's face and tail. In the past, Master had told them about many special characteristics of rare demonic beasts, including the miserable face spider scorpion. This monster in front of them was undoubtedly the demonic beast that Master had mentioned. This type of demonic beast was extremely rare. It had the same characteristics of spiders and scorpions, but it was much more powerful than those 2 insects. It was very picky about its food. The male miserable face spider scorpion only liked to eat female prey, while the female miserable face spider scorpion only ate male prey. Human, male, I don't like. This monster could actually speak. The miserable face spider scorpion should not have a human form. Its body should be that of a spider's and not human limbs. The miserable face spider scorpion in front of them was clearly not a normal demonic beast. Furthermore, this strange miserable face spider scorpion could actually speak human language. This clearly exceeded the category of demonic beast. "You're a demonic beast." Mu Yu's expression changed, as if he had thought of something and suddenly exclaimed. Master had said that all living things had a spirit, represented by 3 races. One was the human race, the leader of all living things, ruling the entire world. The other was the human, powerful and not inferior to humans. The last was the demonic beast race. Among the 3 races, the human form was the best at controlling the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The other 2 races were similar to the human form. The human had the appearance of a human, but it was much more powerful than a human. The demonic beast race also needed to evolve into a human form to better utilize the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Some demonic beasts actually looked no different from humans. The demonic beast race evolved from demonic beasts. The demonic beast race's status among demonic beasts was similar to the status of cultivators among mortals. If demonic beasts had intelligence, they would be able to evolve into demonic beasts with their own consciousness. They would know how to cultivate, how to control the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and how to use spells. Their strength was comparable to humans. The number of demonic beasts was about the same as humans, but compared to cultivators, there were too few demonic beasts that had intelligence and became demonic beasts, much less than cultivators. Even if demonic beasts evolved into demonic beasts, they would not change their vicious nature. They liked to kill each other, which was why there were so few demonic beasts. Thousands of demonic beasts, the demonic beasts, the demonic beast race. Of the demonic beasts of the demonic beast race. Demons, demonic beasts, demonic beasts. Demonic face, demonic beast. Of the demonic beast of the demonic beasts of the demonic beast, demonic heavens, demonic beast. Human made a comeback. The demonic beast race was unable to recover after the war with the humans. Because of human's actions, the demonic beast race was on the verge of extinction. They had no choice but to stand on the side of the humans and fight against human with them. Therefore, the demonic beast race and the humans signed an agreement. The demonic beast race submitted to the humans and withdrew from the stage of history. They lived in seclusion in remote places. Without proper guidance, it was difficult for other demonic beasts to evolve into demonic beasts. Mu Yu had never seen a demonic beast race before. Most people in the cultivation world only knew of the evil human and forgot about the existence of demonic beasts. He did not expect to see a demonic beast race like the wretched spider-scorpion in a place like Mount Fulong. The demonic beast race was not like human, who would control the houses, crops, firewood, and so on. Therefore, they were not as scary as human. However, they were demonic beasts and were much stronger than humans. Therefore, dealing with demonic beasts was a rather troublesome matter. And this wretched spider-scorpion in front of him still maintained its demonic form. It had only transformed its 4 limbs. Clearly, it had not fully evolved. Human, you deserve to die. The wretched spider-scorpion exploded. As a demonic beast, its legs were more powerful and its speed was faster. Streams of white liquid shot out from its mouth, mixed with a fishy stench, towards Mu Yu. F***CK. Can you be more hygienic? You'll be fined for spitting. Mu Yu quickly retreated to avoid that disgusting thing. That thing was still steaming and hissing when it landed on the ground. It was on a completely different level from what Mu Yu had just stepped on. When this white thing was spat out, it was corrosive and could corrode the flesh of any living creature. If one was not careful and was hit, one's body might be corroded. This was something Mu Yu knew very well. Quality, quality! Mu Yu could not help but curse in his heart when he saw the demonic beast race spitting everywhere tirelessly without any intention of stopping. If it were a human, after spitting a few mouthfuls of spit, it would cool down for a long time before continuing. However, this demonic beast race was spitting endlessly without any signs of exhaustion. Ding! The wretched spider-scorpion had already pounced over. Its nails were its weapon, as hard as black iron and extremely sharp. It was not afraid at all as it interweaved with Mu Yu's shadow-clone sword. Mu Yu kept dodging and had to pay attention to that incomparably fast scorpion tail. Being stung was not fun. Demonic beasts becoming demonic beasts did not depend on their cultivation, only their intelligence. It was just like how humans were able to cultivate and looked at their innate talent. Once their intelligence was activated, as long as they were not killed by other demonic beasts, they could begin to transform into humans. This process was very long, and during the transformation, their strength would be greatly reduced. If they were not careful, they would be eaten by their natural enemies. It was just like how humans who had just learned how to cultivate were not protected by their teachers. If they walked in the cultivation world and had a slight conflict with others, it would easily lead to a bloody incident. This demonic beast race was the same. To demonic beasts, the conditions for becoming a demonic beast race were even harsher. This wretched spider-scorpion's cultivation was not high. It was only at the 2nd level, which was equivalent to a human's foundation establishment stage. The main reason was that its evolution was not complete. It felt like it had only evolved halfway, but it was not clear what the reason was. Even so, Mu Yu felt that dealing with this demonic beast race was more troublesome than dealing with other demonic beasts. Because this fellow still had a tail and a mouth. Not only did it rely on its tyrannical demonic power, it also relied on its mental pollution to disgust the opponent. Mu Yu leapt high, a sword chi fiercely slashed at the wretched spider-scorpion's chest. But the wretched spider-scorpion's fur was only destroyed. Other than leaving a scar on its skin, it did not receive any substantial damage. Mu Yu's sword chi was unable to injure the demonic beast. He had underestimated the demonic beast race. Is the demonic beast race's skin very thick? Mu Yu dodged the fatal scorpion tail and spit. His body quickly descended and stood on a rock. Seeing the wretched spider-scorpion baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, and then looking at Hong Yen who was entangled, his heart could not help but become nervous. How is Hong Yen doing? The wretched spider-scorpion pounced forward again. Mu Yu's sword chi weaved, The shadow clone sword in his hand split into two. Rushing forward, one shadow sword pierced towards the wretched spider-scorpion's eyes, and the other pierced towards its tail. But the wretched spider-scorpion's long fingers strangely changed, and in a moment, it firmly grabbed onto Mu Yu's two swords. It even exposed a sneer. "You think I only have two swords?" Mu Yu bellowed, releasing his hand. He grabbed the third sword and pierced towards the wretched spider-scorpion's fangs. "This fellow's mouth is not clean, it keeps spitting saliva, I need to treat its mouth." But a sudden change occurred. Mu Yu's third sword was suddenly stopped in midair. Just as he was suspicious, a heart-wrenching pain came from his waist. Unknowingly, the wretched spider-scorpion's body had already grown out two more arms, growing out from its ribs, the sharp claws piercing into Mu Yu's body. Mu Yu endured the pain, his dust-fall steps becoming formless. His feet lightly tapped on the wretched spider-scorpion's tentacles, and then flew backwards, crashing into the stone wall and heavily falling onto the ground. "I should have known, spiders have 8 legs." Mu Yu struggled to stand up, looking at his wounds. There were 2 black blood holes on his waist. The wounds were already starting to turn black. The wretched spider-scorpion's tentacles were poisonous. Mu Yu, you better leave quickly, you can't defeat this monster." Hong Yen shouted from above. She looked like she had only fainted and was not injured, but the battle between Mu Yu and the wretched spider-scorpion had awoken her. The wretched spider-scorpion was a male, the prey it ate must be females, and it must be unharmed, and it was this habit that saved Hong Yan's life. "Senior Sister Hong Yan, it's good that you're fine." Mu Yu endured the pain. He realized that his wounds were somewhat numb, the demonic beast's poison was too strange. He had to think of a way to detoxify it. Plants. Mu Yu looked around. He needed plants. After fusing with the trees, his body and the trees were one. He could leave the poison in the plant. But this was a huge cave. The surroundings were messy and sharp rocks. Plants could not grow here. Mu Yu's hand touched moss, but there was too little moss, it was not enough. "Human, die." The wretched spider-scorpion threw away Mu Yu's shadow clone sword, and once again charged towards Mu Yu. The disgusting mucus in its mouth was about to stain Mu Yu's body. Mu Yu leapt forward, dodging it. With a wave of his hand, the shadow clone sword flew up again, piercing towards the wretched spider-scorpion. But his spirit energy was unable to replenish it. The shadow clone sword only lightly swept, and was repelled by the wretched spider-scorpion. Mu Yu no longer had the strength to move. He leaned against the wall, watching the wretched spider-scorpion walk closer, step by step. The wretched spider-scorpion had already extended its sharp claws, laughing strangely, the cold glint of the claws aimed at Mu Yu's throat. "Am I still too reckless?" Mu Yu looked at the descending sharp claws, his heart feeling bitter. He thought that in this deep forest, there was nothing that could threaten him, so he did not listen to his senior brother, and came to save Hong Yen, but he did not expect that he would accidentally enter this cave. Without the support of plants, he was just an ordinary true cultivator disciple, just that he had a bit more talent than others, but in the end he was still a foundation establishment brat, and was careless. The wretched spider-scorpion's claws descended. Chi. Chapter 67. The miserable face spider-scorpion fell to the ground, its body split into 2. The purification erosion sword in Qingyan's hand was dripping with blood. His face was terrifyingly gloomy. Mu Yu had never seen him with such an expression before. He had always been easygoing, and had never been angry with anyone, but at that moment, he was truly angry. The miserable face spider-scorpion was unable to kill Mu Yu, and at the critical moment, Qingyan had arrived and killed it. If not for Qingyan's timely arrival, Mu Yu would have been dead. Senior brother, luckily you're here." Mu Yu wiped the sweat off his forehead, and forced out a smile. "Go, let's leave this place." Qingyan's eyes flashed with anger. He did not say much, but looked at Mu Yu's wound and frowned. I'm sorry. Mu Yu lowered his head. It was his fault. He overestimated his own abilities, thinking that nothing would happen to him. He came alone to chase after the enemy, but he did not expect that he would almost lose his life. Qingyan did not say anything. He supported Mu Yu up, brought Mu Yu up, took off Hong Yan, and left the disgusting cave. Junior brother Mu Yu, are you all right? It's all my fault, it's all my fault. Hong Yan anxiously looked at Mu Yu's pale face, and could not help but blame herself. Mu Yu's current injuries were all caused by her. She did not expect that she would be kidnapped by a monster in the dark environment. She did not even know who attacked her. If it was anyone else, they would not be able to fight against a monster in the dark. Hong Yan, quickly fly up to the sky and find the others. I will get them to wait in the sky, Qingyan said. But, junior brother Mu Yu, Hong Yan looked at Mu Yu's situation. She wanted to stay behind and help, to see if she could help. Don't cause any more trouble. Go over there and find all of them, Qingyan said with an unquestionable tone. His voice was no longer as gentle as it used to be. On the contrary, it was very cold, like cold metal, making people unable to see through him. Hong Yan looked at Qingyan and did not dare say anything. She turned and looked at Mu Yu worriedly, thinking that Qingyan was Mu Yu's senior brother, so he should be fine. Then, she stepped on her magic treasure and rushed into the sky, quickly disappearing. Mu Yu felt his nerves go numb. The tragic face spider-scorpion's poison had already spread throughout his body. If he wanted to detoxify the poison, he had to merge with the trees. However, in front of Qingyan, he was somewhat hesitant. He didn't want his senior apprentice brother to know about his talent in controlling wood. He didn't want his senior apprentice brother to look at him differently. His master knew about his talent because he had his own reasons. However, his master had told Mu Yu not to let others know about this ability. This naturally included his fellow apprentices. Enter the trees. Qingyan lowered his voice. He knew. He actually knew about Mu Yu's ability. Senior apprentice brother Yu, stop talking nonsense. Hurry up, Qingyan said. Mu Yu was startled. He did not understand what was going on. How did his senior apprentice brother know about his ability? But the numbness in his body was getting stronger. He no longer hesitated and struggled to enter the tree trunk. His body quickly merged with the tree trunk. He heaved a sigh of relief and slowly left the poison in his body in the tree trunk. After that, he fell out from another tree. Mu Yu gasped for breath. Even though the poison in his body had been detoxified, he had still used up a lot of spirit energy. It was still strenuous. He sat up. After a long time, he looked at Qingyan. Senior apprentice brother, you know everything? Mu Yu asked bitterly. Don't let there be a next time. Qingyan's voice was still hoarse. Senior apprentice brother, how did you know? There are many things that I know. You have to be careful with your ability. Qingyan did not plan to explain anything. He knew that Mu Yu had Yumon's ability, but he was the same as his master. He chose to remain silent and did not pursue the matter. Maybe he knew something, but he would not say it. Senior apprentice brother, I'm sorry. It's my fault. Master's matter, Qing Mei's matter. I have been very troubled these past few days. I don't know what I should do. But I don't want anything to happen to you. Do you understand? Qingyan's voice returned to its usual calmness. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He slowly calmed himself down and did not continue speaking. The torment that he had endured these past few days had reached his limit. Someone wanted to harm his master. He did not know who that person was, and he liked a girl. That girl could bring danger to his master. As the eldest senior apprentice brother, he had no choice but to consider his master's safety. He could only heartlessly reject Qing Mei. When he saw the miserable-faced spider-scorpion waving his butcher's knife at Mu Yu that night, his heart turned cold. He was afraid that if he was late by even a breath, Mu Yu would have died. He hated himself for not having the ability to change these things. If his cultivation was higher, perhaps none of these things would have happened. He would not scold Mu Yu. Mu Yu's experience was very shallow. He was very curious about the world. Even if he did something, it was only because of impulse. He was the eldest senior apprentice brother. He had to maintain his calm at all times. His anger was reserved for outsiders and not his own senior apprentice brothers. Senior apprentice brother, I will not do this again. Mu Yu knew what Qingyan was thinking. He made Qingyan make a difficult choice between his master and Qing Mei. This already made Qingyan feel very uncomfortable. What he did at night had undoubtedly added more trouble for Qingyan. Qingyan had always taken care of his junior apprentice brothers and sisters. He never complained and liked to take on everything himself. He felt that as the eldest senior apprentice brother, he had the responsibility to do so. Mu Yu understood that sometimes he had to learn to take care of other people's feelings. This night was not peaceful. The people who were lost were all found by Qingyan one by one. They gathered in the air and landed in the forest, finding a relatively safe place. No one was in the mood to sleep. No one would have thought that something like this would happen for no reason. Why would the demon race appear here? It was rare for Hao Yingjun to not be mischievous. That night, he and Xue Er met another miserable-face spider-scorpion. Fortunately, Qingyan had just left and returned quickly. He killed that miserable-face spider-scorpion and saved their lives. I'm not sure. Those two miserable-face spider-scorpions should be together. The one that attacked the two of you was female. Female miserable-face spider-scorpions like to eat male prey. At that time, it wanted to kill Xue, then capture you and make you its dinner. Qingyan gave Hao Yingjun a meaningful look. Hao Yingjun's body trembled. He was covered in fat and no girl would fancy him. However, his fat body was actually fancied by a female demon. He did not know if he should be happy or sad. Senior apprentice brother Qingyan, how do you know? Xue asked curiously. Many cultivators only knew of Yumon's evil. They knew very little about the demon race. This was because the demon race had already disappeared 1,000 years ago. There were not many records left behind. Even the disciples of these large sects knew very little about them. The female miserable-face spider-scorpion only eats male prey and the male only eats female prey. They will kill unrelated prey and capture them alive. Therefore, it is very easy to identify them. Qingyan threw the branch in his hand into the fire. The branch crackled in the fire. That night, everyone's danger was resolved by him alone. If it was not for him, everyone would be in a precarious situation and would definitely be in trouble. Guitian snorted. You know quite a lot. You even hid it from us for so long. Since you are a cultivator from the Jindan period, why didn't you say so? What are your intentions? Did I say that my cultivation was in the foundation establishment stage? Qingyan lightly replied. The others were stunned. Indeed, Qingyan had never mentioned his cultivation. In fact, because of his age, no one thought that Qingyan was a cultivator from the Jindan period. Adding on to the fact that Qingyan did not reveal himself and maintained his aura at the foundation establishment stage, no one suspected him. Senior apprentice brother, don't say any more. Tonight, if it was not for senior apprentice brother Qingyan, I would have lost my life. Hong Yen blamed Guitian for not understanding the situation. At this time, he was still so honest. Brother Qingyan's talent is probably not inferior to Bai Liang's. You apprentice brothers are really talents that have been buried. Hao Yingjun could not help but sigh. Who would have thought that the falling dust sect that used to be at the bottom would produce such a talented disciple? One was Mu Yu, who only cultivated for 2 years and defeated all the disciples of the major sections. The other was Qingyan, who stepped into the Jindan period at the age of 20. This kind of terrifying talent was one of a kind. Hao Yingjun even began to suspect that the falling dust sect that was always at the bottom was secretly accumulating power to revive the sect. Be careful and don't tell your father. Otherwise, he will slap you and tell you to stop joking around. Mu Yu thought of the Wu Yen Taoist, who said they practiced crooked methods. He wondered how he gave birth to a fatty like Hao Yingjun. He did not inherit the Wu Yen Taoist's stubbornness at all and spoke with a glib tongue. Hao Yingjun smiled awkwardly. There was no way he could hide this from the sect. He would definitely report it when he got back. However, he really did not know how to explain it to his father. His father had always said that the falling dust sect was a crooked sect. Even if he explained, he probably would not believe it. However, this was a matter for the future. There was no need to think too much about it for now. We came here to look for Yaman, but we accidentally found the Yao. Plus, the animals in this forest have strange habits. I just feel like something is wrong. If Yaman is here, then how can the Yao coexist with Yaman? Could it be that Yaman silently allows the Yao to exist? Hao Yingjun rubbed his chin. Although he looked sloppy on the outside, his mind was not simple. Otherwise, his father would not have let him bring his sister out. We only saw 2 demons. Perhaps these 2 demons were lucky enough to have gained sentience. However, have you considered that if Yaman and the Yao are here, then this is not normal? If Yaman interferes with the Yao, Mu Yu suddenly thought of a possibility. He and Qingyan looked at each other. Clearly, Qingyan knew what Mu Yu was thinking. If what you think is right, then doesn't that mean that Yaman and the Yao are planning to? Hao Yingjun was not stupid. He immediately thought of what Mu Yu was thinking. The others were not as quick-witted as the 3 of them. They did not understand what Yaman and the Yao's appearance meant. Shui kicked her brother and asked in confusion, "What are you 3 talking about? You'll get sores if you don't tell us half the story." Let's explain it this way. The Yao evolved from Yao. Just like us humans who cultivate to become immortals, we need the guidance of our seniors to enter the cultivation world. Yao want to become Yao, but they also need guidance to gain sentience. The Yao disappeared thousands of years ago. All these years, we've only been at war with Yaman. There are too few Yao, so they can't get involved. This means that without the guidance of the Yao themselves, it's very difficult for them to gain sentience. Mu Yu paused. He realized that the 3 of them still did not understand, so he continued. Yaman and the Yao are enemies. Yaman has always wanted to make a comeback and overthrow the humans, but he has never been a match for the humans. This time, they might be planning to work with the Yao to fight against the humans. However, the Yao are almost extinct. Yaman could be the Yao's guide, guiding suitable Yao to gain sentience and evolve into Yao. Perhaps Yaman found a way to control the Yao that they helped to gain sentience. That's why the Yao are coexisting with Yaman here. Simply put, we're guessing that Yaman is helping the Yao expand their power so that they can fight against the humans together, Qingyan said, hitting the nail on the head. This explanation was much more straightforward. Everyone immediately understood. Yaman is colluding with the Yao? That's a big deal. We have to quickly inform the sect. Shui exclaimed. We're not even sure if Yaman is here. Moreover, this is just a guess. Maybe those 2 Yao have nothing to do with Yaman. They just got lucky and gained sentience on their own. Mu Yu shook his head. They had not seen Yaman yet. They had only received news that Yaman was here. They could not jump to this conclusion just because they found 2 Yao. It was too rash. Chapter 68. Mu Yu's group had been trekking in this deep forest for 5 days, and no one dared to let down their guard. They were used to the dead silence of the day, and the noisy environment of the night, and no one dared to deal with their personal matters. Yaman was still nowhere to be seen, and the demons did not see a single one, as they went deeper and deeper into the barren mountains. They did not know how big this forest was, and there were hardly any signs of human habitation, not to mention that mortals would not come here, even cultivators would not set foot here. Thus the journey was very difficult, and sometimes they had no choice but to fly to search for humans' tracks. But because of the crisscrossing trees, flying in the forest was very troublesome. With so many of us here, even ghosts would know to hide, let alone the Yu Meng demon clan. I'm afraid we won't be able to find the Yu Meng demon clan this time. Hao Ingjun rubbed his thigh and complained, I feel like I've lost a few kilograms. Isn't that better? Or else you won't be able to walk. Hong Yen said sarcastically. Little sister Hong Yen is right, from tomorrow onwards I will train my body, and strive to become thinner. Hao Ingjun laughed as he replied. Fatty, you said the same thing yesterday, you can lie with your eyes wide open without blinking. Mu Yu pushed aside a bramble and jumped over. Little brother Mu Yu, you can't say that, actually being fat has its benefits. The benefit of being fat is that, I'm stuck again, quickly pull me up. Hao Ingjun also wanted to jump over like Mu Yu, but the space between the two trees was too narrow, and could not fit his body. He was unable to jump over, and was stuck in the branches. The benefit is being stuck everywhere? Mu Yu pulled Hao Ingjun, but to no avail. Instead, Hong Yen directly kicked Hao Ingjun's butt from behind, and kicked him over. Kicking is love, kicking is love, kicking is making us love each other. Hao Ingjun rubbed his butt, his eyes were filled with tears, but he did not forget to say a few words. Bam! A soft sound came from under the fatty's feet. He cursed with a face full of bad luck. Damn it, I stepped on dog shit again. But the fat man suddenly stopped cursing. He raised his foot in surprise, looked around and said, I think I stepped on this pile of dog shit on the first day we came here. What? Why is my luck always running into you? Mu Yu held back his laughter and walked over. He inadvertently looked at the pile of toys and was stunned. Fatty was right. There was a huge footprint on the pile of demon wolf feces, and Fatty stepped on it again. Those footprints were so big. Other than Fatty, no one else would have them. This is impossible. We've been walking for 5 days, and you're telling me that we're back to where we started? Shui really wanted to take a look at those things, but when she remembered how disgusting those things were, she dismissed the idea. Maybe it really is. Mu Yu searched around and found the spider web. The spider web was already broken, but half of the insect's body was still hanging on the web. Mu Yu's heart sank. They did not even enter the depths of the forest? That can't be right? It's been 5 days, why isn't that pile of feces dry yet? Hong Yen pinched her nose and said, What's wrong with that? There are no insects here, and it's so damp. When I, Grandpa Fatty, have diarrhea. Shut up. Hong Yen kicked the fatty again. Mu Yu, did you not notice anything on the way here? Qingyan asked. Mu Yu shook his head. He knew what Qingyan was trying to say. Mu Yu was very sensitive to trees. If there were any abnormalities in the surrounding trees, he would have noticed it immediately. But Mu Yu did not notice any changes in the surrounding trees. After walking for 5 days, he did not notice anything wrong. This was not logical. Let's go. Let's go up and take a look. Qingyan stepped on his flying sword and flew towards the top of the tree. Soon, the vast forest appeared beneath his feet. The others followed and looked down at the deep forest. Looking forward, they could not see the end of it. Looking back, they could vaguely see the hidden Dragon Mountain. We're really going in circles. Qingyan brought everyone forward. After a while, they saw a small stream. They landed beside the stream and found the ashes from the fire that night. Ah, did we walk for nothing for the past 5 days? Hao Ingjun jumped up unhappily. He had suffered a lot in the past 5 days. The tree branches loved to hit him and cut him all over. After walking in the forest for 5 days, they were told that they had been going in circles for the past 5 days. If it was anyone else, they would not be willing to believe it. Fatty always thought that they had gone deep into the forest. Perhaps they would see Yaman's nest soon. But in reality, they had not even seen the surface of the forest. This is a huge formation. We've been tricked, Muyu said in a low voice. Tricked by who? Cher asked. I'm afraid no one else can control such a large forest except for Yaman Wood. Muyu touched the trees beside him. However, the trees did not show any abnormalities. Yaman Wood could control trees. This meant that they had been under his surveillance when they entered the forest. Only he had the ability to set up such a formation in the forest. Muyu did not know much about formations. His master had only mentioned a little to him. It was said that Yaman was proficient in the 5 elements art of divination. Some of the formations that cultivators created were learned from Yaman. For example, the formations that protected the mountains of various sects, the formations of the academies, and so on. The most classic formation was the heaven and earth sleeve that cultivators set up in their sleeve. It was the simplest formation that every cultivator knew. This formation also came from Yaman. Gu Etienne suddenly turned his head to look at the forest behind him. His eyes flashed with vigilance and confusion. What's wrong? Muyu asked. Gu Etienne shook his head. I keep feeling like we're being watched. I'm more sensitive to people's stares than you are. But I don't see that person. Maybe it's just my imagination. Being watched? Everyone became nervous. Someone had been following them for the past few days. How could they not sense it? It was terrifying to think about. Everyone looked at each other. Then, they quietly studied the dense forest around them. They hoped to see where the leaves would suddenly move or where there would be a rustling sound. Unfortunately, there was nothing. There was no sneaky shadow either. Gu Etienne was an individual cultivator. He focused on the cultivation of his body's senses. Because of this, his senses were very sharp. He had always felt that someone was watching them not far away. However, he couldn't catch a trace of that person, so he thought he was being paranoid. Muyu didn't think so. Gu Etienne's senses couldn't be wrong. He also had a strange feeling, but it wasn't as strong as Gu Etienne's. In fact, Muyu had felt that something was wrong the moment he stepped into the forest. However, he couldn't tell what was wrong. He didn't sense that he was being watched. However, a familiar aura filled the air as if it was calling out to him. However, he couldn't find the source. In other words, it's most likely that a certain Yaman is following us? Qingyan said. It's definitely a wooden Yaman. It's possible that a certain wooden Yaman secretly turned back our path. Muyu leaned against the tree. He still couldn't sense anything abnormal within a radius of 20 meters. That Mu Yuming Devil Clan member might have been watching them from outside Mu Yu's perception range. After playing hide-and-seek with them for 5 days, was that Mu Yuming Devil Clan member just trying to stop them from going any deeper? Does that mean there really are Yaman here? Cher covered her mouth. They hadn't dared to conclude that there was a Yaman here because they hadn't seen it with their own eyes. Everything was just speculation. Let's follow this stream and see. That way we won't get lost. Qingyan flew above the stream and followed it upstream. The others hurriedly followed. They were here to find the Yaman. If they flew above the forest, they might not have to take a detour, but this also meant that they might miss the Yaman in the forest. The 6 of them didn't realize that when they were flying above the stream, a red signal flare appeared in the sky far behind them. The sound of the signal flare was loud and lingered in the sky for a long time, but it didn't reach the ears of Muyu and the rest. Because the trees were too dense and tall, no one noticed the signal flare. The signal flare stayed for 15 minutes before it finally disappeared. They didn't know if the other groups saw the signal and went to help, but Muyu and the rest didn't see it. The 6 of them flew very quickly. Because there was nothing above the stream, it didn't affect their speed. They didn't know where the source of the stream was, but they followed the stream into the forest. After flying for about 2 hours, Qingyan suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Fatty asked curiously. Following Qingyan's gaze, they saw a pile of ashes beside the stream. The ashes were the traces of the fire a few days ago. "Why is this stream so strange?" Hong Yen exclaimed. "I have always been paying attention to the stream's direction. The stream has always flowed down from the front. We went against the flow, but in the end we still came back." Qingyan's face congealed. The stream's direction had never changed, but they flew back. It was too strange. "Water Yuman," Mu Yu said softly. "It wasn't only the wood Yuman that caused them, there was also the water Yuman." He was afraid that even the earth Yuman was involved, but no one noticed it. "What do we do? Should we fly into the sky and fly deeper into the forest, then land back down?" Schwer suggested. "That's useless. When we are searching in the forest, we will most likely be circled out again." Mu Yu shook his head. If they couldn't find the Yuman that was tailing them, then no matter how deep they went into the forest, they would still be circled out. "Hao Ingjun, give me the sea nan." Qingyan remembered that the fatty had a guide that he carried with him. This guide could point to the south. It was a great invention of the humans. "The sea nan will not work when it meets the gold Yuman." Hao Ingjun passed the sea nan to Qingyan. "No, it will only affect the sea nan when a group of gold Yuman gathers. One or two of them won't affect it. My cultivation is the highest, so I will use my spirit energy to protect it. The Yuman will not be able to interfere," Qingyan said. Everyone's eyes lit up. This was a good idea. As long as they kept pointing to the south, they would be able to determine the correct direction. Even if the Yuman was in front controlling the path, they wouldn't have to worry. Qingyan flew into the sky and determined the general direction. He then landed. "When we came here, we were in the southeast. If we want to go deeper, we need to go northwest. This is the south. That means..." Qingyan turned around. "That was the direction they came from. We have to go back?" the fatty asked in shock. Qingyan nodded. "We have been misled by the surrounding trees. I went up to take a look. If we cross this stream, we will return to Mount Fulong. In fact, we have already unknowingly stood on the other side of the stream. However, we still don't think we have crossed the stream. Therefore, the correct path is the one everyone thinks we came from." "Then how did this pile of ashes appear on the other side?" Hao Ingjun still didn't understand. "The ashes are caused by burning wood. The Yuman has a way to disguise this pile of wood," Qingyan explained. "You're confusing me." Snow was a little confused because she had a poor sense of direction. "Follow me." Chapter 69. Why do I feel like we're going back? Isn't this path supposed to be straight? Why are we going that way? Are we really going the right way? Along the way, the two girls who had no sense of direction kept asking questions in confusion. Actually, they were not the only ones. The others were also confused. They felt like they were going in a straight line, but as they walked, Qingyan told them to turn. Mu Yu explained on behalf of Qingyan, "We need something to determine our direction when we walk. In this forest, we can only see trees, and these trees have many subtle differences. We thought we were going in a straight line, but in reality, we've already turned." As he walked, he touched the trees that they passed by. At first, he did not notice anything strange about the trees, but now, every time he walked past a tree, he would run his hand across the trunk. Qingyan was going in the right direction. These trees seemed to be able to move silently, and they would mysteriously lead them astray. If not for Sinan, they would have circled back to where they started. Yuman was proficient in the 5 elements formation and the art of divination. When humans entered their main battlefield, it was too difficult to walk out on foot. The only way was to fly, and flying meant that they would not be able to find Yuman's trail in this forest. It was no wonder that Yuman had fought with humans for so long, and they were never truly wiped out. On their battlefield, it was very difficult for humans to completely wipe them out. "Wait a minute, I smell death." Mu Yu suddenly stopped. He sniffed, and an ominous premonition surged in his heart. It was a very strange feeling, and he could not even describe it. He would have this feeling whenever a demon or a human died, but it was not as strong as before. What do you mean by dead and alive? What nonsense are you talking about? Everyone stopped and stared at him strangely. No one knew what Muyu meant by the death aura. Muyu did not know either. He only knew that the living had vitality, and the so-called death would wrap around the dead. This kind of aura could not be explained by smell. It was a sensitivity to life. Something must have happened around here. This way. Muyu walked to the right and crossed over a pit. He pushed aside the branches blocking the way and went around a few large trees. A large locust tree appeared in front of them. This large locust tree had luxuriant branches and leaves. It covered the sky and covered the sun, shrouding the surroundings in a somewhat gloomy manner. Only the mottled sunlight sprinkled on the ground, making it seem dusky. The branches of the locust tree were very thick, which was different from the ones they usually saw. It would probably take 10 people holding hands to hug it. No one had ever seen such a thick locust tree, including Muyu, who was most familiar with plants. What a strong smell of blood! Gu Etienne's eyes flashed with a strange light. The smell of blood. Hearing these 3 words, the others immediately became cautious. Everyone hurriedly looked around, but they didn't see any bloodstains. There weren't even any signs of a fight. Why can't I smell anything? Hong Yen took a deep breath, but did not smell any blood. You haven't experienced much killing, nor have you seen true slaughter. You won't understand the smell of blood. Gu Etienne slowly approached the gigantic locust tree and stared at it. The smell of blood was coming from this tree. Muyu was standing in front of the big tree at this moment. His hand slowly touched the big pagoda tree. Just as his consciousness sank into the big pagoda tree, his face suddenly changed. He quickly let go of his hand and looked at the big pagoda tree in horror. What's wrong? Hao Ingjun asked curiously. From his point of view, other than the big locust tree's tall appearance and thick branches, there was nothing else worth paying attention to. He could not smell the smell of blood that Gu Etienne had mentioned. No, nothing. How could it be nothing? Muyu's breathing became hurried. The moment his palm touched the locust tree, he saw a scene that frightened him. No matter who it was, without any warning, seeing what Muyu saw, they would be scared out of their wits. There was a person inside the tree. A dead man. It was a cultivator. Muyu had seen him before, because he was one of the 40 people that came here. He had forgotten which sect this person came from, but this person was currently trapped in the branches of the locust tree. That person's eyes were wide open, as though they were about to pop out. His face was pale, his hands were tightly clutching his neck, his expression was extremely distorted, fear was written all over his face. His entire body seemed to be squeezed, curling up unnaturally. His entire body was covered in scarlet blood. It was a ghastly sight. The thick branches of the locust tree wrapped around him without leaving a single gap. It was as if this person was a piece of art, perfectly embedded in the tree. It was like creating a bronze statue, melting the copper and casting it into a mold. This person was a mold, and the locust tree seemed to have melted and wrapped around him, perfectly fitting him. Muyu slowly calmed himself down. When had he ever seen such a scene? The locust tree had swallowed that person and still maintained its original state. If he did not have the ability to control wood, he would not have been able to sense it. No human could do such a thing, only Yuman could do it, and Muyu himself. But how could Muyu dare to say what he saw? If he said it, he would have to explain to others how he knew that there was a dead person inside the locust tree. He originally had an unclear relationship with Yuman, and now he could not explain it. The death chi you spoke of came from this locust tree. The smell of blood I smelled also came from this locust tree. Gu Etienne said from the side. Why would a tree have the smell of blood? Shui walked over in confusion, sizing up the locust tree. She did not sense anything strange, and even boldly reached out her hand to touch the tree. Hao Ingjun pulled out his flying sword with a quang sound. Then should we cut it down and take a closer look? This tree is so big, who knows how many 100 years it has been growing, it would be a pity to cut it down. Hong Yen said. Senior brother, what do you think? Mu Yu tried his best to remain calm. Qingyan looked at Mu Yu's gaze. He had known Mu Yu for a long time, and knew what each other's words and actions meant. He knew that Mu Yu had the ability to merge with trees, and Mu Yu's reaction meant that there was something strange about the tree, but because of his ability to control wood, Mu Yu did not say it out loud. As for what it was that caused Mu Yu to have such a big reaction, he did not know. Since Gu Etian said that this tree has the smell of blood, then let's cut it down and take a look. Qingyan could not directly ask Mu Yu. He and Mu Yu had been together for 2 years, and naturally knew what Mu Yu meant. Mu Yu hoped that everyone would cut down the tree, and let others know what was wrong with the tree. Don't cut it in half, this tree is so big, it is not a good thing to cut it down, slowly peel off the bark. Mu Yu said to Qingyan. Qingyan nodded his head, understanding tacitly. The flying sword in his hand was already flying towards the locust tree, causing everyone to involuntarily retreat. During the Jindan period, Qingyan's sword was extremely powerful, even though the locust tree's bark was tough. But under Qingyan's sword, it was like tofu, unable to withstand a single blow. Everyone held their breaths as they watched Qingyan carefully cut open the tree's bark, piece by piece. Everyone was very nervous, afraid that a monster would suddenly appear from the trunk. There were more and more wood shavings on the ground, and Qingyan did not dare to cut too much at once. Slowly, he cut through nearly a third of the thick trunk. Wait. Mu Yu felt that something was wrong. The person he saw just now was just outside the trunk, and was not buried so deeply. According to Qingyan's degree of cutting, that person should have already appeared. What's wrong? Qingyan stopped. Mu Yu composed himself, walked forward, and touched the locust tree again. Then, he took a deep breath, and his divine sense entered the locust tree, and then he was stunned again. That person had actually disappeared. Did he see a ghost in broad daylight? Mu Yu was shocked, but still felt that something was wrong. His divine sense involuntarily moved towards the top of the locust tree, and he finally felt that something was wrong. That person had not disappeared, he had actually moved to the top of the locust tree trunk. No, there was not only that person in the locust tree, there was also a moving creature, and that was above. Qingyan suddenly shouted. Another flying sword appeared in his hand, and with a sudden stab, the flying sword rushed towards the locust tree's horizontal branch. When Qingyan stabbed the branch, a green shadow flashed out from the horizontal branch, and with incomparable speed, crashed into another tree, and disappeared again. Everyone's attention was focused on Qingyan, and when Qingyan stabbed out with his flying sword, everyone was also looking at Qingyan's flying sword. Although the green shadow was very fast, everyone was a cultivator, and in an instant they saw its face clearly. It was a green creature, and its skin was somewhat rough, like the uneven bark of a tree. The roots of the tree coiled around with long whiskers formed hands and feet, and there were tender leaves growing on some parts of its body. Its eyes were a ball of green mist, and it looked particularly strange. That's the Yuman. Everyone was stunned. This was the first time they had seen Yuman. Although they had often heard their elders talk about Yuman's hateful face, in the end, that was only a description, and it was not as real as seeing it with their own eyes. At this moment, a figure jumped out from the trees and revealed its face in front of the cultivators. Almost without thinking, everyone was immediately sure that it was the target of their trip. Chase. Gu Etien's words woke everyone up, and they hurriedly stepped onto their flying swords. Don't chase. Qingyan stopped Gu Etien. This is a forest, how can we catch up to it? Yuman had already disappeared, and everyone looked at each other, understanding that Qingyan was right. However, they were still somewhat unwilling, because this Yuman had escaped right under their noses. Mu Yu did not move. He stared blankly at the branch Yuman had just jumped out from, and Qingyan's flying sword was now stuck there. Shuer followed Mu Yu's gaze and also looked at the branch. Her face suddenly turned pale, and there was no trace of blood. Shuer's scream resounded through the forest, echoing for a long time. Mu Yu was on the branch that the demons had jumped out from. At this moment, half of a human figure was revealed from the branch. His upper body was exposed to everyone's vision, drooping weakly. His lower body, however, had merged with the locust tree and was still buried in it. It looked like he wanted to crawl out of the locust tree, but he only managed to crawl his upper body out before stopping. Yuman wanted to take the person out of the locust tree, but Qingyan's sword was too fast. Yuman chose to give up after pulling the person out of the tree, and ran away alone. Chapter 70. The old forest of Fu Long Mountain was still deathly silent, not a single bird could be seen during the day, and there were no sounds of beasts or insects, only pure silence. There were young cultivators scattered around the forest. They came here to find Yuman's whereabouts, but they did not expect that someone had already stopped breathing forever. Maybe it was not just one person, but no one could be sure. Shuer and Hong Yan were squatting at the side. Their faces were extremely pale. Hao Yingjun was there to comfort them. Shuer sobbed as her body trembled. She had never seen such a way of dying. That person's eyes were ghastly, as if he wanted to take her life. His eyes were filled with a strong desire to live. That kind of miserable scene lingered in her mind. Qingyan had already dug out the person from the locust tree, and laid him flat on the ground. This feeling was very strange. If a person was buried in the ground, no one would be surprised, but to be buried in a tree, this feeling was very strange. The person's body was curled up, his 4 limbs were hanging down unnaturally, all the joints were broken. It was as if he had experienced great pain before he died. Mu Yu used his sword to pick off the wood shavings on his body. Many of the wood shavings had already fused deeply with the flesh. Mu Yu did not have the heart to clean up the wood shavings. He had the ability to do so, but in front of these people, he could not do it. A disciple of the space-seizing sect. His name is Yin Jingxiang. I have fought with him before. Gu Yitian's expression did not change. It was always so calm, as if the corpse in front of him was no different from a living person. He had seen death more than anyone else. For the sake of tempering his body, he went deep into the demonic beast forest, fighting against strong demonic beasts, and almost lost his life many times. To him, death was only a hurdle on his path to becoming stronger. Qingyan lifted up Yin Jingxiang's sleeve, and broke his heaven and earth sleeve formation. Spirit stones and a flying sword were scattered on the ground. There were also a few other items. Only the thing that Qingyan was looking for was not there. The signal spark is gone. He must have sent out a signal to inform everyone that there's Yuman here. Unfortunately, no one saw it, including us, Qingyan said in a low voice. He wrapped Yin Jingxiang's belongings in a cloth again, and put it back into Yin Jingxiang's arms. Since he was already dead, it would be unkind to search his belongings. However, Qingyan had no choice but to do so. They wanted to confirm if Yin Jingxiang had sent out a distress signal before he died. It was obvious that he had used a signal spark, but Mu Yu and the others did not see it. The trees in this forest are too tall. It's hard for us to see the signal sparks in the air unless we fly up. Mu Yu shook his head. In fact, he also had doubts in his heart. The signal spark had sound, but they didn't hear it. Before they came here, the elders didn't really believe the hunter's words. They didn't think it was possible for Yuman to appear, which was why they allowed the juniors in the Foundation establishment realm to check it out. They thought it was just a chance for them to train in the wild. They didn't expect someone to die, and a young soul would be buried alive. Everyone's hearts were heavy, not only because someone had died here, but also because they had confirmed Yuman's existence. Yuman's reappearance had broken the peace of the human world for so many years. The unavoidable war between humans and Yuman was about to reignite. The most surprising thing was that Mu Yu and the others had discovered traces of the monster race in the territory of the Yu Meng demon clan. If Mu Yu and the others were right about the relationship between the demon beasts and Yuman, that was the most worrying thing. "Let's bury him," Gui Tian said. "Yuman killed Yin Jingxiang and wanted to keep him in the locust tree forever. I think he's already tired of this forest, and I'm afraid he won't be willing to stay here any longer." Mu Yu looked at Yin Jingxiang's eyes, which were still open in death, and sighed heavily. Dying in this dark forest, trapped in Yuman's tree, his soul would never be able to rest in peace. I wonder where the others in Yin Jingxiang's group went? Are they looking for him right now? Qingyan stood up and looked at the three people squatting by the side. His gaze landed on Xue Er and Hong Yin. There were 2 weak girls on this trip, and Yuman had already set his eyes on his group. If he wanted to make a move, his first target would be these 2 girls. The forest was still deathly silent, and there wasn't even any wind. The surroundings were filled with the smell of blood, making them feel uncomfortable. Were the other groups also being targeted by Yuman? "Let's leave this place. Yuman has already been confirmed to be here, and our mission is complete. If we want to find Yuman's nest with our strength, I'm afraid we won't be able to do anything. Let's go back and let the elders decide." The moment he saw Yuman appear, Qingyan knew that there was no need for them to stay any longer. They were only here to confirm the existence of Yuman, and not to fight with Yuman. Furthermore, with their strength, they could not do it. No one had any objections. Xue Er and Hong Yen were both eager to leave this place. They had been frightened for the past few days, and Hong Yen was almost killed by the spirit demon clan. Now that they had seen such a cruel scene, their emotions were unimaginable. They did not have much experience, and would need a long time to digest everything that had happened. Qingyan waved his sleeves, and used his spirit energy to lift Yin Jingxiang's body up. He stepped onto his flying sword, and the rest stood up as well. Riding on their treasures, they soared into the sky. The blue sky returned to their eyes, the air was no longer filled with the rotting smell of the trees, and the atmosphere was no longer oppressive. Everyone's mood was much better, and all of them stretched their bodies, calming themselves down. But when they looked into the vast and boundless forest, they were all startled. North, south, east, west, in all directions they actually saw 5 signal flares. The 5 signal flares exploded one after another, and the sound traveled far. But when they were in the forest, they did not hear the sound of Yin Jingxiang releasing the signal flares. What's going on? The 5 signal flares were far away from them, and even if they flew over, they would need to spend a lot of time. In the air, they did not see anyone else flying with them. If they had met with danger or saw Yuman, they should have immediately flown into the air, but why did they not see anyone else in the air? This is bad. Could it be that Yuman suddenly launched an attack on them? Qingyan's face changed. Everyone else's heart sank and they looked at each other, not daring to make a conclusion. There were a total of 7 teams, and now that there were 5 signal flares, it meant that other than them and another team, the other 5 teams had either seen Yuman or were fighting with Yuman. What do we do now? Hao Yingjun looked at Qingyan. Qingyan's words carried the most weight, and everyone listened to Qingyan's decision. All of you, take Yin Jingxiang's body and leave this place. I'll go check it out. Qingyan made a prompt decision. The 5 teams had all seen Yuman at the same time, and had released signal flares. They must have already started fighting with Yuman, and needed backup. Moreover, if they were to fight against the Yu Meng demon clan with their foundation establishment cultivation, their chances of winning were very low, not to mention that there were 2 girls with low cultivation and a corpse. Therefore, Qingyan let them leave. No, I'll go with you. Hao Ingjun shook his head. It was rare that he did not want to run away at a time like this. Gu Tian snorted. He was not a coward and would not leave. We also have to help. Shui Er and Hong Yen said at the same time. Only Mu Yu did not say anything. Yuman has an absolute advantage in this forest, and you guys who are in the foundation establishment stage will not be able to gain any advantage. I have already prepared for the worst. If something happens to the others, I have to make sure that someone will bring this news back. Your mission is to leave this place as soon as possible and go to Qingsong School or your respective sects to ask for reinforcements. Ask all the seniors of the Jindan period to come, otherwise if something happens to all of us, the problem will be serious. Qingyan's voice was very firm. This was not the time to be a hero, but he was in the Jindan period, and he could not just leave. Qingyan looked at the distant signal flares that were slowly fading, and his heart was very anxious. He did not know how the others were doing and if they could hold on. Then let Shui Er and Hong Yen go back. We will also go and see if we can help. Hao Ingjun said. Their cultivation is too low. What if they are intercepted by Yuman halfway? The three of you will protect Shui Er and Hong Yen as they leave this place safely. If you want to come back, then come back. In short, you have to make sure that someone will bring the news back. Qingyan handed over Yin Jingxiang's body to Hao Ingjun. Hao Ingjun frowned, but still used his spiritual energy to receive it. Hao Ingjun and Gu Yitian did not speak. Shui Er and Hong Yan's relationship with them was not ordinary, and their safety was not a joke. Qingyan's words were reasonable. At least they needed someone to spread the news, and they could not find an excuse to refute. Senior, I will go with you. After a long silence, Mu Yu finally spoke. His tone was very calm. This forest was his battlefield, and he had no reason not to go. He looked at Qingyan, and Qingyan looked back at him. Qingyan did not reject Mu Yu this time. With Mu Yu's ability, he might be able to help in this forest, and even if he could not, protecting himself would not be a problem. As long as he did not walk into a cave without plants that night, it would be fine. Mu Yu, come with me. The rest of you remember to fly higher. Yuman's fire Yuman can also fly. Be careful of their attacks. Qingyan nodded at Mu Yu, and then flew towards the signal flares in the deepest part of the forest. Mu Yu also tried his best to follow. The rest did not hesitate, and flew towards the direction of Mount Fu Long. I know you have the ability to control wood. You do not need to fight with Yuman. You only need to secretly control the trees to help the others, and let them fly. Qingyan instructed. He used his spiritual energy to support Mu Yu, so that Mu Yu could fly faster. I understand. Chapter 71. Senior brother, what should we do? We can't escape. A young man was flying through the forest in a panic. His face was pale and filled with fear. He couldn't help but look behind him. Between the crisscrossing branches, he could vaguely see a few shadows jumping about. This young man was Si Anming from the Celestial sect. Beside him was his senior brother, Zhao Yunyang. Both of them were wounded and their breaths were disordered. Don't panic. We must hold on until the others arrive. Zhao Yunyang comforted him. In fact, he was desperate. The signal flare given by the Qingsong School was useless in this forest. Everyone was in the woods. When they looked up, they would see the leaves covering the sky. Who could see them? Si Anming was about to cry. He was so young. This time, he followed his senior brother to see the world. They didn't believe that there was a Yuman in this forest. They came here to relax. Even if there was danger, there were so many powerful companions. Even if Yuman appeared, they couldn't do anything to them. However, things didn't go as they wished. They were attacked and the others in their team were trapped and missing. Human die. A gloomy shadow rushed out from the front. The shadow had 4 limbs and sharp claws, but it had a pair of black wings on its back. There were also barbs on the feathers of the wings. On top of its body was the head of a tiger, and its mouth was filled with sharp teeth that shone with cold light. It was not a human, but a winged tiger, a demon. "Senior brother, be careful!" Si Anming cried in horror. A sharp blade popped out of the winged tiger's hands. With a flash of cold light, it was aimed at Zhao Yunyang's heart. Zhao Yunyang had just turned his head when he was met with the ferocious eyes of a tiger. He felt a pain in his chest, and felt that the blood in his body seemed to have stopped flowing. Then, his consciousness gradually dissipated. He only felt that blood was gushing out from his chest. His limbs were bent and his head was tilted down. He had stopped breathing. "Senior brother!" Si Anming was stunned. Zhao Yunyang, who had been perfectly fine a moment ago, had his body pierced by the sharp claws of the winged-toothed tiger. Zhao Yunyang's entire body was hanging from its arm. The winged-toothed tiger was still holding Zhao Yunyang's beating heart. The winged tiger slowly withdrew its sharp claws. Zhao Yunyang's body fell down like a puppet and was stuck between the branches. His eyes were wide open. He had never thought that such a thing would happen. The heart is delicious. The winged-toothed tiger swallowed its beating heart. Blood flowed out from between its teeth and dyed its fur red. The fresh blood filled its eyes with fanaticism. It flicked its sharp blade again and leaped towards Si Anming. Was he going to die? Si Anming closed his eyes. He didn't want to run anymore. These demons were all stronger than him, and there were a lot of them. It was impossible for him to get out. It's good that he's dead. He won't have to run away in fear anymore. He didn't feel anything at all. Was this death? Si Anming sighed. It turned out that death was such an easy thing. Without feeling any pain, the world fell into darkness. But why were the wounds on his body still aching faintly? "Fly away from this place on your sword." A voice woke Si Anming up. He stared blankly for a moment before opening his eyes. He saw a person who was about the same age as him, but looked so mature and steady. He remembered seeing this person before, but he didn't know which sect he came from. He also didn't know who his name was. You are. Si Anming stared blankly at this person. He didn't die. He really didn't die. Someone came to save him. Qingyan's gaze passed him and looked at the forest behind Si Anming. There were still countless waves of spiritual energy spreading out. There were still people going through a bitter struggle there. He didn't have time to answer Si Anming's question. His figure turned and disappeared. The winged-toothed tiger's body was split in half and hung on the treetop. It didn't understand why it died so mysteriously. It didn't even know who attacked it. "Quickly fly up." A youth appeared in front of Si Anming. He recognized this youth. He was the one who defeated Qingsong School's most famous disciple, Little Tiger. Who wouldn't recognize him? "We can't fly up. The trees here seem to be under a spell. They grow as high as we fly. We can't get out anymore." Si Anming shook his head dejectedly. Mu Yu frowned. He didn't think of this when he landed. Some kind of spell was cast on the trees? No wonder these people kept running through the forest. They released signal sparks, but no one flew into the sky to escape. Mu Yu placed his hand on the tree trunk and sank his consciousness into the tree. A strange power came from the tree trunk. It was so majestic. He didn't know where it came from, but it made his heart palpitate. Mu Yu raised his head and tapped the ground with the tip of his foot. He flew into the sky, but the canopy of the tree immediately followed his height. He flew for a while, but found that there were still leaves above him. They were indeed trapped. Could it be that they could only land in this forest and couldn't fly out? But why were they able to fly out just now? If human or the demon race attacked the humans at the same time, why did they let them go alone? "I'm going to help the others. You be careful." Mu Yu heard the sounds of fighting in front of him. He stopped thinking about this matter and moved forward in a flash. The branches were bent in all directions and the leaves were stained with blood. But not a single tree was cut down. This was very illogical. For a foundation establishment stage cultivator, it was easy for a flying sword to cut a tree. But the tree trunks here were intact. It was extremely strange. In front of him, 3 people were surrounded by 5 demons. The 5 demons didn't completely transform into their human forms. They had different heads. These were all very common demons, including red wolves, tigers, lions, and black monkeys. These demons were already very strong when they were demons. Now they seemed to have reached a higher level. If Qingyan hadn't arrived in time, the 3 people would have died. The abnormality of the trees must have been secretly controlled by Yuman. But Mu Yu didn't see any Yuman, only ferocious demons. These demons were like killing machines. They fought with their lives on the line when fighting against cultivators. Their sharp claws could leave deep scars on humans, but humans' flying swords couldn't hurt them. Qingyan's flying swords were not on the same level as others. He controlled 5 flying swords at the same time. In less than 15 minutes, all the demons were cut down. These demons were evolved from second-level demons. They couldn't fight back in the Jindan period. However, more and more roars came from the forest. Then, many insects, wild beasts, demonic beasts, and demons swept over like a tide. These animals that had disappeared during the day suddenly all appeared here. They seemed to be controlled by something and rushed over crazily. Qing Yan's expression changed. With a wave of his sword qi, he sliced a few demon wolves in half. Then, he shattered the insects that swarmed over and repelled another wave of demon beasts. However, even more demon beasts came one after another. Moreover, from the sound of their running, there seemed to be no end to them. "Go!" Qingyan shouted. Although these demons weren't a threat to him, there were too many of them. There were also 3 people who were seriously injured behind him. He couldn't continue fighting and quickly retreated with the others. Mu Yu blended in with the trees and didn't retreat with the others. He looked fearfully at the demons and wild beasts that ran past him. If it was a normal time, he could kill a large number of them with one sword. But there were so many of them that he couldn't kill them all. Other than running for his life, there was no other way. Mu Yu hid in the trees. He could move freely. He even found that he could fly out of the forest and not be affected by the strange formation. But he couldn't help the others because he didn't have the time to help others. He found a wooden Yuman. The wooden Yuman was hiding in a tree not far from him, secretly watching everything. Just as Mu Yu found him, he also found Mu Yu. He seemed to be shocked. He didn't expect that a human could blend into the trees, and he just happened to see him. The moment the wooden Yuman was discovered, it was only stunned for a moment. Then, it immediately turned around and ran away. How could Mu Yu let it go? The wooden Yuman was probably the source of the control of the beast tide. If he wanted to stop the crazy beast tide, he had to start with the wooden Yuman. He didn't hesitate to follow. His speed in the forest wasn't any slower than the wooden Yuman. When Mu Yu blended into the trees, his body became a part of the tree. So when the leaves of 2 trees came into contact with each other, he could quickly move to the other tree. In the trees, he could clearly see the situation around him. The Yuman moved in the same way. This was also the reason why the others couldn't see the Yuman. Mu Yu chased after the Yuman for almost 2 hours. The wooden Yuman realized that it couldn't escape after being locked on by Mu Yu. It simply stopped running. It left the tree and stood on the treetops. Mu Yu also came out and looked at the green Yuman. "You're not a Yuman. You're a human." This was the first time Mu Yu heard the Yuman speak. It was quite novel. The Yuman's voice was full of vitality and vitality. It was as if it brought hope. It didn't match its strange appearance at all. Mu Yu looked around. He was still surrounded by lush trees. He didn't know where he was. He had chased after the Yuman for so long. He was probably very far away from the others. "You're not a human. You're a Yuman." The Yuman spoke again. Its words were contradictory. It was likely that even it wasn't sure. What are you? The human asked curiously. Why do you care what I am? Let me ask you. Are you the one who controlled the beast tide? Muyu couldn't answer the human's question. He didn't know what he was either. He had the appearance of a human and the power of a human. He could even control the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that a human couldn't. Who could explain this? Humans shouldn't be here. The human's eyes were covered in a layer of green mist. It floated slowly and looked very strange. Human shouldn't be here either. Muyu replied. This is our territory. Why not? The human looked at Muyu from head to toe. It was trying to figure out something from Muyu. Muyu didn't know how to refute the human's words. Humans had destroyed the human, but they still kept the fire alive. They were secretly resting here. As for whether the human should be destroyed, Muyu didn't understand. He didn't want the humans and human to continue fighting. Undo the formation in this forest and we'll leave immediately. Muyu said. No one can leave here, including you. The corner of Mu Yuming's mouth curled into a smile. He waved his hands, and the trees around Mu Yu began to grow rapidly. Tendrils shot out and wrapped around Mu Yu. Chapter 72. The tree next to him seemed to come alive. Its branches whizzed over. Mu Yu lowered his head and merged with the tree. The two trees next to him were motionless. Mu Yu took over the control of these two trees. Unlike the human, Mu Yu had to be in contact with the trees in order to control them. However, the human had a natural connection with the trees, so it didn't seem like it needed to touch them to control them. The disorderly branches violently streaked through the air, emitting explosive sounds. Mu Yu controlled the two trees beside him to block the branches that whipped towards him. At the same time, he attacked the human. Using the branches to whip me around, it's like playing house. How boring! Mu Yu charged towards the human. The shadow clone sword in his hand was nimble and flexible, aiming straight for the human's heart. The human jumped high into the air and pulled away from Mu Yu. Its hands moved continuously as sharp branches extended from its arms and collided with Mu Yu's flying sword. A loud explosion sounded as violent spiritual energy shot out in all directions. The two of them were forced to retreat. The human's arms were so tough that Mu Yu couldn't even scratch its skin. It was truly terrifying. Mu Yu didn't stop. His footsteps were light as he charged forward once again. The sword in his hand surged as he charged forward. Mu Yuming shouted softly. Suddenly, green branches and leaves bloomed from his body. Then, those branches and leaves all fell off and scattered in all directions. Then, like darts, they shot towards Mu Yu from all directions. Mu Yu was shocked. If this hit him, he would definitely turn into a porcupine. Falling shadow vanishing. The eighth move of the Luo Chen sword technique. Falling shadow vanishing. 10,000 shadows converged into one, leaving no shadow behind. The dense leaves filled the sky as they whistled through the air. Mu Yu's shadow clone sword had already split into two and was evolving the sword technique. The speed at which the two swords transformed became faster and faster, forming thousands of sword shadows. They erupted from Mu Yu's body and collided with the leaves. Whistling sounds rang out unceasingly as the leaves were pierced through and shattered. Without any offensive power, the leaves fell from the sky like dust. The powdery leaves were like a hazy fog. For a moment, Mu Yu was surrounded by the leaves. However, the two of them were experts in controlling trees. How could they be blinded by these leaves? A green sword light shot out from the broken leaf. Mu Yu brought a sword with him as he flew above the Mu Yuming demon. A beam of sword chi slashed down from above. The Mu Yuming demon did not expect this. His body tilted, and with a soft sound, his left arm was chopped off. I thought you had thick skin. Mu Yu felt that it was a pity. He had almost killed this human. He was always apprehensive about killing people. However, he didn't have any other thoughts about killing a human. This was because the Yuman had killed a few disciples from other sections. You are stronger than the other humans. After the Yuman's arm was chopped off, no blood flowed out. Muyu wasn't surprised. He suspected that the Yuman's body was made of wood. The Yuman grabbed onto a nearby tree. The tree lit up with green light and gathered towards the Yuman's body. The wound on its left arm was wriggling. In the blink of an eye, an arm grew out. Fatty had said that the Yuman had a strong life force and was hard to kill. If that was true, losing an arm wasn't a fatal injury to them. But you still can't beat me. The Yuman moved its newly grown arm. Its body suddenly expanded. Thick wooden strips appeared out of thin air and flew at Muyu. Muyu didn't know where these wooden strips came from, but he was sure that they didn't come from the surrounding trees. He wanted to fly up and avoid these wooden sticks, but a wooden stake fell on top of his head. He was forced to turn around, but the branches coming from all directions trapped him in a wooden cage in the blink of an eye. Muyu grabbed the cage and tried to control the wooden strips. However, a repulsive force bounced him away. He was shocked to find that he couldn't control the wooden strips. He quickly swung his shadow clone sword, but when the shadow clone sword slashed at the wooden strips, there was only a dull thud. The wooden strips were unharmed. Why were these wooden strips so strange? The Yuman slowly approached Muyu. The wooden strips in the cage started to press down on Muyu. Soon, Muyu's arms were tightly bound by the surrounding branches, and he couldn't move. The wood control that he was so proud of was ineffective before these wooden strips. In terms of wood control, the Yuman appeared to be much better than him. This is my body. How can you control it? Mu Yumeng lifted Muyu's chin. His voice was still full of vitality and joy, making it impossible for people to dislike him in the slightest. This was the first time Muyu had seen the Yuman so closely. He saw the fine lines on the Yuman's skin and the growth rings. He even smelled the unique scent of cedar on the Yuman. Was this guy born from a cedar tree? What do you want? Muyu kept struggling, but the more he struggled, the tighter the wooden strips wrapped around him. He almost couldn't breathe. Why do you have our abilities? Did humans nurture you? Are you a weapon that humans nurtured to deal with us Yuman? The Yuman slowly asked. A weapon that humans nurtured? That wasn't a bad guess. Muyu didn't know who his parents were since he was young. If he was a weapon nurtured by humans, why would they let him run around so easily? Furthermore, he came to Yuman's territory with his cultivation level and fell into Yuman's hands so easily. What kind of secret weapon was this? Who said that only you would Yuman can control trees? You Yuman aren't the only ones who know how to use trees. We humans know how to grow crops too. Muyu stopped struggling. He was already trapped. He didn't expect to be captured in a moment of carelessness. The Yuman smiled, revealing its white teeth. It actually had human teeth. This was a strange feeling. Grow crops? If it wasn't for us Yuman, would you humans have crops? You don't know where Yuman came from, do you? You don't know where humans came from either, do you? You humans are too arrogant. I'm afraid you've already forgotten where you came from, right? The Yuman wasn't angry. It just looked at Muyu with disdain. Its misty eyes looked very scary. Where Yuman came from. Where humans came from. Muyu was so busy every day. He didn't have time to think about where he came from and where he was going. His master didn't tell him this, so he didn't know. I'm going to bring you back and let the tribe's old tree elder study you. He might parasitize your body to see the structure of your body. The Yuman raised its hand and Muyu's body involuntarily rose into the air. Hey, let's talk nicely. You don't have to parasitize me, right? Muyu shuddered when he thought about the leaves coming out of his mouth and nostrils. However, he couldn't do anything about it. The fatty said that the Yuman was the easiest to deal with. How was this easy to deal with? They entered the forest. If all the Yuman came running, would these sect disciples have a chance to escape? Why did the beast tide suddenly retreat for no reason? Qingyan made everyone stop. There were only 4 people left in the group. Si Anming was pulled away by Qingyan when they were retreating. Everyone was in a sorry state. They were injured quite badly and their spirits were low. I'm not sure. These beasts and insects look like animals commonly seen in the forest. We didn't see any beasts when we came in the past few days. I didn't expect them to all be here. A curly-bearded man said. There was a deep scratch on his back. It was a bloody mess. Fortunately, his body was strong and he used his spirit energy to protect the wound. Thank you, senior brother, for saving us. I'm Mo Xiong from the Colored Glass sect. May I know senior brother's name? The curly-bearded man cupped his hands. Qingyan easily killed a few demons. There was no doubt that he was from the Jindan period. However, he was so young and should be very famous in the Jindan period. Why hadn't he heard of him before? Qingyan from the Falling Dust sect. Qingyan looked around. He didn't see Mu Yu's shadow. He didn't know where Mu Yu ran off to. However, as long as he was in the forest, he should be safe. There was nothing to worry about. A disciple of the Falling Dust sect? He was so young and he was already in the Jindan period? Everyone was stunned. You're a disciple of the Falling Dust sect? You're from the same sect as Mu Yu who defeated Little Tiger? Mo Xiong asked in shock. Everyone looked at each other in shock. A 15-year-old who reached the Foundation establishment stage was already very heaven-defying in their eyes. However, the Falling Dust sect actually had a disciple who reached the Jindan period at the age of 20. Even Bai Liang didn't have this kind of talent in the entire cultivation world. Was the Falling Dust sect really as ridiculous as the legend said? How did you get attacked by the demons? Qingyan didn't care about the strange looks from the others. No one in this group was in the Jindan period, so they were relatively weak. Qingyan suddenly thought that Yuman didn't attack his group. Could it be that he was afraid of his cultivation during the Jindan period and didn't dare to attack? When he arrived, he saw 5 signal flares. There was one group that didn't have any abnormalities, so it should be Bai Liang's group without a doubt. However, the group led by Zhu Wenxing was also in the Jindan period. Why was their group attacked as well? We don't know. We haven't seen a single living thing in the past few days. However, a few demons suddenly jumped out and tore one of our group apart. We could only send out signal flares to call for help. Fortunately, senior brother Qingyan came in time. Mo Xiong's mouth was bitter. The person who was torn apart was his junior brother. At the time, he was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He wanted to charge forward and exterminate the demons, but unfortunately, he almost lost his life as well. Let's get out of here quickly. Let's try and see if we can fly out of this forest. The others are also in trouble. Qingyan took out his compass. He had to get these people out of here first to avoid another attack from the demon horde. Mu Yu didn't know how long he had been tied up by Yuman. He knew that they were deep in the forest and would soon reach Yuman's nest. In order to protect its nest from being discovered, Yuman secretly set up a formation to trap the intruders. Then, it sent out demons to kill them. It was a good plan. Are those demons under your control? Mu Yu asked. Yuman didn't answer Mu Yu's question. It didn't want the humans to know too much. Or are you under the control of those demons? Mu Yu asked again. Humph. Those inferior races can control us? Don't be ridiculous. They wouldn't dare to resist whatever we ask them to do. Yuman felt insulted by Mu Yu's second question and immediately replied. Mu Yu also confirmed this problem. Yuman wanted to use the demons to deal with the humans. This plan was still unknown to the humans. Humans and Yuman were the same. They looked down on the demons and thought that they couldn't do much. However, if Yuman had a way to guide the demons to become demons, then they had to take it seriously. A familiar aura entered Mu Yu's mind. He was shocked. That feeling had appeared again. That night when he was chasing Hong Yen, he had discovered this aura. However, because he was heading in a different direction from Hongyan, he had no choice but to give up. He didn't expect that Yuman would bring him here today. Are we almost there? A tree branch brushed past Mu Yu's face. Yuman brought Mu Yu through the forest. It didn't care that Mu Yu was being hit by all sorts of tree branches. Mu Yu wasn't worried because he was trapped. Yuman forgot one thing. Mu Yu could merge with the trees. When the tree branches brushed past his face, he would have used the branches to escape if he wanted to. However, he decided to take the risk and enter Yuman's nest. Once he found the nest, he would escape. This way, he could bring back more information. Why do I only see your Yuman? Where did the other Yuman go? Mu Yu stretched his neck and closed his eyes. A leaf brushed past his eyelids. The surrounding trees were no different from usual. However, he didn't see any other animals. He didn't know where they went. They might have gone to chase after Qingyan. With Qingyan's ability, Mu Yu wasn't worried. Yuman ignored Mu Yu's question. Is it because your Yuman is the weakest, so the other Yuman sent you here to catch us? Mu Yu asked. Pei. How can our Yuman be the weakest? They only dare to hide underground. They even ask us to protect them. Yuman spat. It always worked. Provocation was the most effective. But why do I feel like the Yuman has the least people? It's much less than the other Yuman. Nonsense. Our Yuman has been resting for so many years. We have the most people. The nearby Golden Yuman doesn't even have 1,000, but we have nearly 10,000. The number of Yuman had reached 10,000? It was considered small compared to humans, but compared to the number of cultivators, it was a lot, not to mention the Yuman of other attribute. If there was a war with humans, the mortals wouldn't be able to help. Even the Foundation establishment stage cultivators wouldn't be able to fight against the Yuman. The only ones who could really fight against the Yuman were the Jindan period. However, even if there were 20 sects in the Jindan period, there would only be over 100 humans. Therefore, the humans in the Moyun mountain range were basically at a disadvantage. This Yuman didn't have a high IQ. Mu Yu was able to get some important information out of it with just a few words. Mu Yu wondered if he should run away now and bring this information back. He stopped talking because the aura was getting stronger. What gave him a headache was that the branches around him suddenly disappeared and they came to an open space. Chapter 73. Mu Yu had just landed on the ground, and before she could even stabilize herself, she saw a few other Yumeng devil race cultivators surrounding her with hostility in their eyes. Shan, why did you bring a human back? Humans are not allowed to come here. A Yuman questioned. He reached out his arm and pointed a sharp vine at Mu Yu's neck. This human has our powers. He can also control trees. I suspect that he is a secret weapon of the humans. He is specifically used to deal with us, so I want Old Tree Leader to confirm it. We can kill him afterward, the Yuman named Shan said. Mu Yu realized that the Yuman looked different from Yuman. For example, the color of their skin, the stripes on their skin, and the leaves on their bodies were different. The one who brought him here was called Shan. Mu Yu was right. The leaves on this guy's body were the leaves of the fir tree. What? He can control trees? The Yuman said in disbelief. Yes. He was the one who found me hiding in the trees. He is also hiding in the trees, Shan said. Go and ask Old Tree Leader to come here, the Yuman said. Old Tree Leader was not an ordinary person. Mu Yu was lying on the ground facing the sky. He did not know what was going on around him, but he was sure that this place was empty. There were no trees around. There was grass on the ground, but the grass seemed to be protected by some kind of power. Mu Yu tried to blend in, but he could not. But something was wrong. The aura that Mu Yu smelled was extremely close. His heart was beating faster and faster, as if something was calling out to him from there. This was impossible. What could be calling out to him? Untie him, an old voice said slowly. An extremely old voice slowly came. This voice seemed to have traveled through millions of years. It was so ethereal, but it was also filled with vicissitudes of life. It was an indescribable feeling that caused people's spirits to be lifted. Yes. The wood on Mu Yu's body disappeared. He sat up and struggled to stretch his arms. After being tied up for so long, they were quite sore. It was a spacious grassland, and there were many similar humans standing around. Every human had their eyes on Mu Yu. Mu Yu felt a little embarrassed being stared at by so many human. He was already planning to escape, but there were too many human here. It would be difficult to escape. An old young devil clansman stood in front of Mu Yu. The reason why Mu Yu thought this young devil clansman was because this young devil clansman had long white eyebrows and a strange white beard. Unlike the other young devils, this young devil clansman had yellow leaves on his body. He was wearing clothes made of Bodhi leaves, unlike the other young devils who only covered their lower body with leaf. His skin was wrinkled, but it looked so harmonious. It did not give Mu Yu any discomfort. This was probably the old tree elder that the other human mentioned. I hear you have the power of our wood human? The eyes of the old tree were not like the eyes of the other young demons, which were filled with green mist. Instead, they were pure human eyes. His weather-beaten eyes seemed to be able to see through the troubles of the world. It seemed that this old tree had lived for a very long time. What's so strange about that? Don't you know how to speak our human language? Mu Yu tried his best to make his ability to control would sound normal, like it was something very simple. You're wrong, this language is not unique to humans. The old tree elder studied Mu Yu. You're not a human, no, you're a human, but you have the presence of our wood human on you. This old man was just like Shan, contradicting himself. What presence? The presence of trees? Mu Yu was still sitting on the ground, looking up at the old tree elder. He felt that the old tree elder did not have any ill intentions compared to the other wood human. The old tree elder's voice was very strange, and Mu Yu did not feel any revulsion toward it. The old tree chief didn't say anything. Suddenly, he stretched out his arm. A vine came out of his sleeve and coiled around Mu Yu's arm. Then, a strange power was transmitted from the old tree chief's vine to Mu Yu. What are you doing? Mu Yu pulled the vine on his arm, not understanding what the old tree elder was doing. The old tree elder was surprised, but he nodded and said, I understand now, so that's how it is. What do you understand? The old tree elder let go of Mu Yu, and the vine returned to the old tree elder. I understand why you have the power of our wood human. The old tree elder smiled. Mu Yu's heart skipped a beat. This was a question that had troubled him for so many years, and the old tree elder knew the answer just by touching him? Why? Mu Yu asked anxiously. Although having this ability wouldn't harm him, it would still bring him trouble. He always thought that he had some kind of relationship with the Yu Meng demon clan, but this old tree chief's behavior made him feel that he might really have some kind of relationship with the Yu Meng demon clan. Come with me. The old tree elder turned around and hobbled away. Hey Grandpa Yuman, make it clear. Where do you want me to go? Can't we talk here? Mu Yu shouted behind the old tree elder, but seeing that the old tree elder had no intention of stopping and the other wood human looking at him, he felt that it was inappropriate for him to continue sitting down. He quickly stood up and jogged a few steps to catch up. Grandpa Yuman, make it clear. What do you understand? Mu Yu caught up to the old tree elder and walked beside him, but a branch reached out and pulled him away. Don't get so close to the old tree elder. A wood human warned. Don't worry, he won't hurt me. The old tree elder smiled at Mu Yu. Who says I won't? I will if you let me go. Mu Yu said to the wood human that had tied him up. The wood human snorted, obviously worried about Mu Yu, but he did not go against the old tree elder's words. In the end, he released Mu Yu. Mu Yu patted his wrinkled clothes. Make it clear. I'm not a saint. We cultivators are against you, human. Although respecting the old and loving the young is a traditional virtue of mine, the premise is that it's based on human foundation. Don't be too full of yourself. The old tree elder laughed but did not say anything. After walking for a while, he stopped and looked ahead. Mu Yu followed the old tree elder's gaze and saw a lush Bodhi tree in front of him. This Bodhi tree elder had grown for God knows how many years. The crown of the tree covered the sky, and the trunk was thick and solid. Looking at it, 20 people would not be able to encircle it. This was the first time Mu Yu had seen such a huge tree. The Bodhi tree elder exuded an ancient aura, full of vicissitudes of life. Mu Yu had never felt its vigorous vitality before, and a unique aura pulsed around it. Yes. Mu Yu finally understood where the familiar aura came from when he entered the forest. The Bodhi tree elder in front of him was the source of the aura. The aura around the Bodhi tree elder was very pure at this moment. It was not a type of spiritual energy but something like vitality. When Mu Yu saw it, it was like seeing an old friend that he had not seen for many years. Even his heart beat rhythmically with the aura. However, Mu Yu did not understand why he would feel a sense of familiarity with this unfamiliar Bodhi tree elder. He did not remember seeing this tree before. Mu Yu, you feel familiar with the Bodhi tree elder, don't you? The old tree elder placed his hand behind his back and asked kindly. How do you know my name? How do you know what I am familiar with? Mu Yu's gaze did not move away from the tree. He felt that this tree meant something to him. After he came here, the feeling in his heart grew stronger and stronger. It was this tree that was calling him over. The old tree elder walked over and stroked the Bodhi tree elder. The other Yaman looked at the Bodhi tree elder with reverence. Their expressions were very solemn and respectful, as if this tree was their religion. They were so devout. Humans and Yaman have been fighting for thousands of years, unable to coexist peacefully. There is an ancient legend. Do you want to hear it? The old tree elder purposely kept him in suspense. You will tell me even if I don't listen, right? Mu Yu curled his lips. According to the legend, 5 people will appear in this world. They are said to be humans, but in reality they are not humans. However, the situation between humans and Yaman will change because of the appearance of these 5 people. These 5 people are humans. They can cultivate, but they also have the ability of Yaman. Their appearance will redefine the relationship between humans and Yaman. The old tree elder looked at Mu Yu. Mu Yu had never heard of this legend. Was the old tree elder an old liar? I am more concerned about what you mean by redefining, the old tree elder said. Mu Yu curled his lips. What do you mean by redefining? Nonsense. If I were that powerful, why would I be captured by you? I didn't expect you to come here by accident. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens. There is no way to verify this legend. I am not sure if it is true or not, but your appearance has made me believe it. The old tree elder stroked his beard. Only 30%. Even he himself didn't believe it. This old man was indeed an old liar. If one day humans and Yaman fight, which side will you be on? The old tree elder asked. Was this old man's brain muddled? Was there a need to ask this question? Do I need to answer? It is so obvious. I am a human. Tell me, whose side will I be on? Mu Yu wanted to leave this place more and more. The Bodhi tree kept calling him, wanting him to go over. However, how could Mu Yu go over? What if the Bodhi tree swallowed him and didn't spit him out? Then wouldn't he become the tree's nourishment? Humans will not allow you to exist. This is because the real cultivation world knows about this legend. Even those sects with a bit of history know about it. The old tree elder still had a smile on his face. The cultivation world knows about this legend? Everyone knows about it? Why don't I know about it? Mu Yu snorted. The cultivation world you are in now is not the real cultivation world, so it is normal that you don't know about it. Haven't you thought about why the strongest human in your current cultivation world is only the Jindan period? Haven't you heard that the real cultivation world is outside this mountain range? The old tree elder said. Muyu was stunned. He had indeed just found out that there was a cultivation world outside the Moyen mountain range a while ago. Not only did he know, but he also knew a girl from outside the mountain range, Tian Ran, who was looking for sword shadow and dust wind everywhere. In addition, the young man in red also came from outside the mountain range. The Jindan period is already very powerful. Although that was what he said, Muyu knew that cultivators from the Jindan period and above could do anything they wanted here. In the past, Muyu had never thought about things above the Jindan period until the appearance of the young man in red. His terrifying cultivation made Muyu understand the horror of those above the Golden Core realm. The Jindan period is very common in the real cultivation world. Only from the nascent soul realm onwards can one be considered an expert. Above the nascent soul realm, there are out-of-body, spirit-severing stage, and integration stage. These cultivators are the mainstay of the cultivation world outside. The old tree elder's words surprised Muyu. Although Muyu could already accept that there was a nascent soul realm above the Golden Core realm, and he even knew that his master was an existence that people looked up to before, these words had a different meaning when they came out of the old tree elder's mouth. The old tree elder had been emphasizing the real cultivation world, which puzzled Muyu. You don't know that the Moyen mountain range we are in is actually a cage, right? The old tree elder slowly spat out these words. Chapter 74. That's right. The Moyen mountain range is a cage. Whether it's us human or you humans, we're all prisoners, the old tree leader said as he stroked his beard. Muyu laughed. Master Human, if you want to be a prisoner yourself, don't drag us humans in. It's not you humans, but the humans outside the Moyen mountain range who treat you humans as prisoners, the old tree leader said. What do you mean? Muyu was puzzled. The old tree leader patted the Bodhi tree. The Bodhi tree moved slightly, and its branches and leaves shook as if it was stretching. Muyu hurriedly took a few steps back. This Bodhi tree was too strange. The old tree leader said, It's been 96 years. We human and humans had a big battle. The humans won, and we human were almost wiped out. In the end, we had no choice but to escape into the Moyen mountain range. There are endless barren mountains here, and the cultivators didn't dare to chase too deep. They knew that places like the Moyen mountain range with many trees and mountains were our human's world. The humans used a terrifying formation to trap this vast and boundless Moyen mountain range. Our Yumeng Devil clan will never be able to leave the Moyen mountain range. Array formation? Aren't you human experts in array formations? How can you be trapped by our array formation? Muyu recalled what had happened in the forest just now. Yuman had used a strange method. Not only did it make everyone run in circles, but it also made them unable to fly out of the forest. Yuman was well versed in the 5 elements art of divination, and all the cultivators knew this very well. The old tree leader shook his head. All the array formations came from us. Unfortunately, you humans also have a powerful array formation expert. He didn't use the 5 elements array, but the heaven and earth array. This array formation is called the immortal confinement prison. It was a very terrifying and powerful formation. With the cultivator's own cultivation as the eye of the formation, it trapped the entire Moyen mountain range. I have to say that the person from the 3rd palace is indeed powerful. I'm afraid that his cultivation has already reached the pinnacle. He was able to defeat 5 of us human spirit lords by himself and then forcefully seal this mountain range. It's all to prevent us human from returning to the outside of the mountain range and fighting with the humans for the 3rd continent. Immortal confinement prison. Muyu's eyes widened. He remembered these 3 words. On the night when Chingsong Taoist was threatened by the red-clothed youth, the red-clothed youth personally told Chingsong Taoist that it was impossible to reach the Yuanying realm in the immortal confining prison. At that time, he didn't know what the immortal confining prison was, so he didn't care. Now that these 3 words came out of old Tree Chang's mouth, he was sure that old Tree Chang's words about the immortal confining prison were not made up. At least, the words immortal confining prison did exist. However, was a single person that powerful? Although Mu Yu hadn't traveled all over the Moyen mountain range, he knew how vast it was. His master had told him that if he wanted to fly to the end of the Moyen mountain range, he would need to fly for a month without eating or drinking with his cultivation during the Jindan period. Who could seal such a huge mountain range? Wasn't this too inconceivable? You're not trying to fool me, are you? What kind of place is the 3rd continent? Mu Yu didn't understand why old Tree Chang was telling him these things. He was just kidnapped and used as a test subject. How did he become a storyteller? The 3rd continent is what I call the real cultivation world, which is the place outside the Moyen mountain range. The highest cultivation of the people in the Moyen mountain range is only during the Jindan period. They are affected by the immortal confinement prison. The immortal confinement prison forcibly suppresses the spiritual energy of the entire mountain range, causing the cultivators here to not have enough spiritual energy to break through to the Yuanying realm. If their strength hasn't reached the Yuanying realm, humans can't leave the Moyen mountain range. Old Tree Chang sneered. He didn't know if he was mocking humans or resenting this heaven and earth array. According to what you said, why don't the cultivators outside help the humans here leave the Moyen mountain range? The more Mu Yu listened, the more puzzled he became. He suddenly thought that the people outside needed to reach the Yuanying realm to enter. Then, didn't Tian Rant's real cultivation also reach the Yuanying realm? She had followed the red-robed young man to the Moyen mountain range without being discovered. This was not something a Jindan period cultivator could do. Are you talking about the cultivation world under the rule of the 3rd palace? There are more than a few million people in the Moyen mountain range. More than 90% of them are ordinary humans without cultivation. Do you think the 3rd palace will spend so much effort to save all these people? The 3rd palace won't be so kind. Other cultivators won't do such a thankless thing because there is only one way out of the immortal confinement prison, which is to pass through thousands of mountains where there are high-level demonic beasts. Cultivators won't do such a stupid thing to take millions of people through the nests of those demonic beasts. Old Tree Chang shook his head. Mu Yu felt a little depressed. He began to slowly believe old Tree Chang's words because Tian Ran and the red-robed young man came from the outside world. Even his second senior brother, whom he had never met, had left the Moyen mountain range in a mysterious way. His master and Qingyan had also come here from the outside world. He didn't know what the twists and turns of this were, but he felt that old Tree Chang should have no reason to lie to him since he was so patient to tell him these things. Mu Yu was silent for a long time before he said, "So these millions of humans can only be trapped in the Moyen mountain range forever? Why can't you go out from that path?" Old Tree Chang seemed to be a little tired from talking. He brought a wooden stool out of nowhere and sat down. He even kindly made one for Mu Yu. Mu Yu hesitated for a moment before he also sat down and listened to old Tree Chang quietly. This immortal confinement prison is a formation. All formations have a boundary. The immortal confinement prison restricts us human, not you humans. You humans can enter and leave at will, but we can't cross the boundary. Not only that, I conservatively estimate that in another 10 years, the immortal confinement prison will exhaust all the spiritual energy in the Moyen mountain range. We human can't recover without spiritual energy, and cultivators can only be ordinary people without spiritual energy. Old Tree's tone carried a hint of ridicule. He was mocking the self-cultivators of the 3 continents for ignoring the self-cultivators of the Moyun mountain range. Those people from the 3 palaces are even willing to sacrifice their own race in order to destroy our Yumeng devil clan forever. They are truly heartless. I can tell you that if there is no spiritual energy in heaven and earth, mortals can't live, but we Yuman can. Muyu was a little angry. If these things were true, then the cultivators of the outside world were too much. Why did the cultivators of the Moyun mountain range unknowingly become sacrifices? What right did the 3rd palace have to abandon these people in the immortal confinement prison? These people obviously didn't need to be sacrificed. As long as the cultivators of the outside world wanted to, they could spare no effort to save the humans of the Moyun mountain range. But they didn't choose to do so. The cultivators of the Moyun mountain range are still in the dark. They don't know that they are abandoned by the cultivation world, and they don't know that they are buried with us Yuman. In fact, we Yuman have long had the ability to rule the entire Moyun mountain range, but we don't want to do so because it's not necessary. Soon, without us doing anything, everyone in the Moyun mountain range will become mortals and there will be no more cultivators. Even if we can't recover our vitality with our ability, isn't it easy to deal with mortals? Old Tree Leader looked at Muyu. What he said was the truth. Although Muyu was skeptical, as long as he listened, it was enough. Muyu really found it hard to accept all this. They were all abandoned humans. Because their cultivation was low, they naturally became sacrifices and didn't even have the right to know. This was cruel and unfair to the people of the Moyun mountain range. The people who made this decision were even more unforgivable. Why are you telling me this? Muyu calmed down and asked. Old Tree Leader laughed again. I'm telling you because I want you to see the essence of humans clearly. Many people in the 3rd continent know about the legend, which is the legend about the 5 of you. If this legend is true, then you should reconsider your position. Strictly speaking, you are half Yuman and half human. No matter which side the 5 of you stand on, it will be a huge blow to the other side. The self you know is far from being as simple as it seems. Legend has it that if the 5 of you grow up smoothly, you will be comparable to our Yuman Spirit Lord, or even surpass him. How do I know if you made up these stories to sow discord between us? Do you want me to stand on your Yuman's side? Muyu understood that Old Tree Leader wanted to recruit him. But Old Tree Leader shook his head. I'm not asking you to stand on our Yuman's side. You can actually check what I'm telling you. A while ago, a nascent soul cultivator came here. This person should be from outside the Moyun mountain range. If you can find him and ask him about this matter, you might understand. I'm telling you this because I hope that when our Yuman and humans fight in the future, when you choose to help humans, you should also consider whether it's right to stand on their side. Muyu knew that the red-clothed young man was the nascent soul cultivator that Old Tree Leader was talking about. However, Muyu naturally wouldn't look for him. That guy was looking for his master. Not to mention whether he would tell him this or not, it would be bad if he accidentally got himself into trouble. He thought of Tianran. He could ask Tianran. No wonder Tianran refused to tell him how she came here. She probably knew about this too, right? You can kill me, then you won't have to worry about which side I'll stand on in the future. Muyu said. This is a way to solve the problem once and for all, but we Yuman are tired of war. The other Yuman still have a deep hatred for humans, but we Yuman like peace and don't like war. You are a special existence to both our Yumeng demon clan and the human race. I want to bet on you. Perhaps you are the existence that will bring hope to our Yumeng demon clan. Old Treehead said kindly. So, you will let me go? You don't even believe in that legend, but you choose to believe in me? Muyu was a little surprised. He thought that coming to the Yuman's nest would only bode ill, but because of his unique ability to control wood, Old Tree Leader was actually going to let him go? Old Tree Leader nodded. I didn't believe in humans at first, but you are different from other humans. Perhaps you can bring us a surprise. We, the Mu Yumming Devil Clan, do not like to kill. Otherwise, when you little fellows with only foundation establishment cultivation came in, we could have annihilated all of you. Why would we have my clansmen deliberately set up a formation for you to run in circles? You didn't kill those people. Mu Yu was shocked. He thought of Yin Jingxiang who died in the forest. If it wasn't for the Yuman, how could Yin Jingxiang be in the forest? In the beginning, it was us Yuman that stopped you from entering the forest. Later, you accidentally angered the Water Yuman, Earth Yuman, and Fire Yuman. They weren't easy to talk to. My clansmen only had to help them because of the agreement between the various Yuman clans. I know you don't like to kill, but trees are full of vitality. We all like thriving life, so why would we take it away for no reason? Old Tree Leader's voice was filled with infinite hope. His love for life was so sincere, without any pretense. Mu Yu also loved life. Whenever he saw demonic beasts or humans die, he would feel an invisible but substantial life force flowing away. It was a bad feeling. Death Chi took the initiative, and Mu Yu did not like Death Chi. You just said that there will be a war between the Yuman and humans in the future. But now all your Yuman are in this immortal prison. You can't even protect yourselves, so how are you going to fight us humans? Mu Yu began to believe Old Tree Leader's words. Old Tree Leader didn't have to lie to him. Because Old Tree Leader chose to let Mu Yu go, it wouldn't be hard for Mu Yu to prove the existence of the immortal prison. Even if he couldn't prove it, Old Tree Leader wouldn't gain any substantial benefits. It was just an illusory hope that was placed on him. Chapter 75. What? You guys can leave this place? Mu Yu was shocked. If Yuman could leave this immortal confinement prison, then wouldn't the humans in the Moyen Mountain range be the ones waiting to die? He looked at the old tree chief with a strange look in his eyes. If Yuman could leave the immortal confinement prison, did it mean that the humans in the Moyen Mountain range could do so too? The old tree chief smiled and said, I know what you're thinking. Just like how Yuman can't leave the immortal confinement prison through the way you humans can leave, our way out is naturally not suitable for you humans. If the humans in the Moyen Mountain range want to leave, they have to rely on their own luck. The old tree chief said it casually, but Mu Yu felt very uncomfortable. Now that he knew that he was one of the humans abandoned by the 3 continents, he was in a very bad mood. If what the old tree chief said was true, then perhaps in another 10 years, there would be no more cultivators in the Moyen Mountain range. If the spirit chi here was exhausted and mortals couldn't survive, then wouldn't the lives of millions of people die in vain? You're now the only person in the Moyen Mountain range who knows the truth. I think that you, who love life, won't just watch those humans die. You can try. Although the life and death of humans has nothing to do with me, I can show you a way. Find the cultivator who is used as the eye of the array. That person is in the 3rd palace, so you have to find the location of the 3rd palace. Kill him and you can remove the entire heaven and earth array, and this immortal confinement prison will no longer exist. Of course, the premise is that you have enough strength to kill that person. That person's cultivation is too terrifying. I'm afraid no one in the world is his match, the old tree chief added. You're tempting me to break the heaven and earth array of the immortal confinement prison? Who knows if you've really found a way to leave the immortal confinement prison? If you haven't found a way to leave, then if I break this array, won't I also release you? Mu Yu was not stupid. He could quickly think of the stakes. Perhaps the old tree chief was using him as a tool. That's your problem. It's your business if you don't believe that we can leave this place. It's also your business if you're willing to save the humans in the Moyen Mountain range. However, it's too early to talk about these things. With your current strength, not to mention the 3 continents, even in the Moyen Mountain range, many people can kill you. If you want to grow smoothly, you need to become stronger. And if you want to reach the nascent soul stage, you need to find a way to leave the Moyun mountain range. It's impossible to reach the nascent soul stage in the Moyun mountain range. Old Tree Chief's words made Mu Yu speechless. What could he do? Even if he wanted to break the immortal confinement prison and save the lives of millions of people, he had to get out of the Moyun mountain range first. To get out of the Moyun mountain range, one needed to have the strength to reach the nascent soul stage. But in the Moyun mountain range, it was impossible for Mu Yu to reach the nascent soul stage. And without the cultivation of the nascent soul stage, he couldn't get out of the Moyun mountain range. This was an endless cycle. Only he knew about this. If he didn't do it, then he would die like millions of people in 10 years. Would he be willing? Of course, Mu Yu was unwilling. He wanted to get out of the Moyun mountain range. I think you must have felt something calling you when you came here, right? The Bodhi tree has a good impression of you. Old Tree Leader changed the topic. Mu Yu hadn't confirmed the truth of these things yet, so there was no need to dwell on this issue. Old Tree Leader had said what he needed to say. How to choose was Mu Yu's business. Mu Yu nodded. This Old Tree Leader had lived for so long and knew so many things. He could even guess what Mu Yu was thinking. The Bodhi tree asked you to come over. It said that you were worried that the Bodhi tree would swallow you and spit you out? Old Tree Leader touched the Bodhi tree, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Mu Yu's mouth was wide open. How did this old guy know about this? Don't worry, you're not fertilizer for the Bodhi tree. Old Tree Leader waved at Mu Yu slightly. Mu Yu hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he walked over. His heart had been beating with the rhythm of the Bodhi tree. At this moment, he was so close to it. That strange aura triggered the spiritual power in his body, and he felt indescribably comfortable. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the Bodhi tree. In an instant, a strange force was transmitted from the Bodhi tree into Mu Yu's body. Every cell in Mu Yu's body seemed to come alive, and exuberant vitality filled Mu Yu's body. His divine sense was integrated into this Bodhi tree, and he could clearly see every wood yuman in this forest. He could clearly feel that every plant in the forest was growing happily, absorbing rain, dew, and sunlight, interpreting the most sincere love for life. His whole body seemed to be accumulating something, and his control over plants became more and more dexterous. He felt that he could directly control the trees without touching them. As long as he wanted, he could make all the trees grow an inch taller. He discovered the formation that the Yuman had set up in the forest, the formation that trapped the self-cultivators. He discovered that he could control these formations. Mu Yu's mind moved. The Bodhi tree did not resist, and he removed all the formations in an instant. Mu Yu opened his eyes and let go of the Bodhi tree. He liked it very much when he came into contact with it. However, he had already done something that Mu Yumeng didn't like to do. At this moment, Old Tree Leader had also discovered it. It was too late to stop him. Sigh. Your move means that I have to explain to the other Yuman elders. Old Tree Leader sighed. Trapping the humans here was the decision of the 5 Yuman. If he made a mistake, how could the other Yuman be willing to accept it? Old Tree Leader did not seem to like meeting the other Yuman. Perhaps the other Yuman had a strong desire to fight, which did not match Old Tree Leader's peaceful personality. You're the one who let me come into contact with the Bodhi tree. Mu Yu spread his hands, looking very innocent. Forget it, the Bodhi tree said that you have a deeper understanding of the ability to control wood, and it still wants to give you a gift? Is it for real? Old Tree Leader suddenly revealed a shocked expression, looking at the Bodhi tree in disbelief. He had been communicating with the Bodhi tree, and when the Bodhi tree sent him a message, he was stunned. What do you mean for real? I'm here as a guest, and it's giving me a gift? That's great, what is it? Mu Yu rubbed his hands, feeling that this trip was not in vain. Old Tree Leader was a little unhappy. He confirmed the Bodhi tree's message again, and in the end, could only nod helplessly. Mu Yu, treat Mu Ling well. It's very precious to us Yuman. Precious Mu Ling? Old tree leader's hand suddenly flashed, and an ugly green sword appeared in front of Mu Yu's eyes. Calling this sword a sword was a bit of an insult to swords. Its entire body was full of bumps and holes of all sizes, as if it had been eaten by worms. From the hilt to the blade, there was not a single part of it that was undamaged. It did not look like a sword at all, and it looked very fragile, as if it could be broken with a light twist. Are you sure this thing is very precious? Mu Yu rolled his eyes. He thought that old tree leader would at least take out some kind of shiny treasure, but he did not expect it to be a piece of broken wood. How precious could this kind of rotten wood be? This Mu Ling must have fallen into a termite nest and been bitten by termites, right? It was already broken to this extent, and he still called it precious. Old tree leader, are you really going to give Mu Ling to this human? This is the treasure of our Yuman. The Yuman, who had been silent all this time, suddenly walked over with a look of indignation. This made Mu Yu laugh. Your Yuman is taking this piece of wood that has been bitten by termites as a treasure? What are you guys thinking? Impudent! Mu Ling is our tribe's most precious treasure. How can we allow you to tarnish it? The Yuman scolded. All right, whatever Bodhi tree leader says. Mu Yu, take it and leave this place. Old tree leader reluctantly handed Mu Ling to Mu Yu. His expression was as if someone had cut off a piece of his flesh. Forget it, forget it. Look at how you guys are looking at me like you want to kill me. I don't want this precious thing. Mu Yu sensed the other Yuman's anger. It was as if they would immediately capture him and turn him into fertilizer as soon as he took it. With this Mu Ling, all the plants in the world will undergo unexpected changes under your control. The stronger your spiritual energy, the older the plants, the more valuable they will be. As long as you have enough spiritual energy, you can even make this entire forest disappear in an instant, old tree leader said. What? It's that powerful? Mu Yu was shocked. He almost rejected such a good thing. It could make such a huge forest disappear. Wasn't that too exaggerated? Although the prerequisite was that he had enough spiritual energy, and this prerequisite was too difficult, he could change the growth rings of any plant. This meant that he could change the age of many precious spiritual herbs. This was something he couldn't do in the past. Many spiritual herbs had better effects the older they were. Didn't this mean that as long as he had the seed of a spiritual herb, he could instantly turn a spiritual herb into a 10,000-year-old treasure? I'll take it, I'll take it. Mu Yu quickly snatched the Mu Ling, ignoring the other Yuman's hateful gazes. It was ugly, but it was useful. At this moment, Mu Yu's shadow clone sword suddenly flew out by itself. Then, the Mu Ling merged with the shadow clone sword in an instant. This! Mu Yu didn't expect this. How could it disappear just like that? Mu Ling will find a good host. Your sword is a good item, so it has taken a fancy to it. Mu Ling has many other functions. You can figure out the specifics yourself. Old tree leader sighed. Mu Ling had already been put away by Mu Yu. It was too late for him to regret. Grandpa Yuman, why are there so many holes in the Mu Ling? Mu Yu thought that since it couldn't run away from the shadow clone sword, he might as well let it stay there obediently. Old tree leader revealed a meaningful expression and said, Mu Ling used to be in perfect condition. It's only because our Yuman's spiritual lord disappeared that it became like this. If you don't like the way it looks, you can choose to repair those holes. How do I repair it? Mu Yu quickly asked. Kill. A person's life can fill a small hole, old tree leader said calmly. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.